Hey, I'm Geeky Pastimes, and today we are going to rank 100, or over 100 apparently, of the greatest games of all time. So I'm going to go through these, tell you what I think of all of them. There's a whole bunch of them, so this video could be super long, and I love talking about games. Obviously, let me know in the comments what you think. Which games did I massively miss out on? Out of the games I haven't tried, which one should I try? That's probably the most interesting thing to me, because then I might actually go back and try them and find some awesome games. I'm doing this live on stream, so there might be some input from the people in chat, and we'll see how we're going. So, we'll start off with Bioshock. Bioshock, I am tempted to put it in Masterpiece, like, almost straight away, because Bioshock is one of my favourite games of all time. But the problem with Bioshock is that the end is terrible. Like, the last, not even just the last boss fight, I would say like the last quarter of Bioshock is pretty bad. There's like a thing that happens, and everyone who's played Bioshock knows what I'm talking about. And then after that, it goes like so rapidly downhill. But the opening of Bioshock is just, it's just amazing. I love it. So I'm gonna put Bioshock in amazing. It's not quite a masterpiece because it didn't stick the ending, but to begin with, it was really good. Castlevania, haven't tried. I mean, I've played little bits of Castlevania games, but I've never played like enough of one to have a decent opinion on it. I always like started out thinking, oh yeah, I'm gonna love this. Like, I love Super Metroid. I think like I'm gonna really like the sort of like the vibe of it, the whole gothicness. And then I play it for like 20 minutes and I'm like, this is actually quite hard and I don't want to play it anymore, which is a shame. Fallout New Vegas, again, amazing. Not quite masterpiece. Fallout New Vegas is my favorite of the Fallout games by far. I really love the environment. I love the setting. I think it's really cool. I think there's some cool characters. I love how different all of the different casinos are. I think that's really cool. But I think I would struggle to put any of the sort of Bethesda RPGs up in masterpiece because they're all so janky. Like, so unbelievably janky. That kind of really detracts from it. If they made like a really polished, well-working Fallout game, it would be well up there. But not for me. Half-Life. Is this Half-Life 1, I think? Half-Life 1, again, amazing. Lots of very, very good games to start off with. Half-Life 1's amazing. I wouldn't necessarily put it in Masterpiece. I think there's some weird stuff, like, again, not sticking the ending. Like, all of the stuff when you go to the alien planet is just bizarre and not that great. There's some annoying jumping puzzles and stuff. I think when people look back on Half-Life, they remember the super cool stuff, like, you know, having cutscenes, but kind of from the first person, so not really cutscenes, you can walk around in them. Having, like, really kind of mundane stuff going on at the beginning, which makes it much more exciting when you come back through it later. All of that stuff is super good, and the AI, obviously, is really, really good. But there's a lot of janky stuff and there's a lot of stupid stuff. When I've gone back to play Half-Life again, like Half-Life Source and stuff like that, and Black Mesa, I found that, like, there's a lot of stuff in that game that was quite annoying, like stuff that just nowadays first-person shooters have done better since, so I'm not going to put that there. Street Fighter 2. I would say Street Fighter 2 is very good. Like, I feel like Street Fighter 2 is one of those games where if you're into fighting games, if you're good at fighting games, you can do incredibly well with it. Like, you can do something amazing in that game, and you probably absolutely love it. I played it, I was in primary school when it came out, I played it with my friends, absolutely loved it. I feel like there's, like, compared to other fighting games since, I get bored of it quite quickly just because, you know, I'm not going that deep into the mechanics and stuff like that. So, like, the actual fights all end up being a bit samey. And it's quite difficult if you don't have friends who are as good as you at the game. All my friends who I've played Street Fighter against are either way better than me or way worse than me, and then that's not that much fun to play against. So, again, I understand subjectively this will be a masterpiece for a lot of people. For me, it's very, very good. Like, Street Fighter is a very good game, but I wouldn't be like, you know, I'm not desperate to go back and play it anytime soon. Smash Brothers. Exactly the same thing as Street Fighter, I think. I think if you're more into Smash Brothers, you'd probably really like it. I don't even know which one that is. Is that Smash Brothers Ultimate? I was surprised when Ultimate came out that, you know, with every character and stuff, I thought, oh my god, I'm never going to need another game again. I'm going to play the hell out of this. And you play it, and it's like, there's not that much there for me. Like, if you're not going super in-depth with it, it's just not that terribly exciting to keep going back to. But I appreciate it for what it is. Like, it's an incredible accomplishment. It's an incredible thing. Also, when you look at, like, there's tons and tons of characters, they obviously had to start scraping the barrel, and, you know, the common meme of, like, there's so many Fire Emblem characters in it. That's not particularly exciting. Right, Team Fortress. Team Fortress, I'm going to put in good. Team Fortress 2, this is. I've never got on with Team Fortress that much. Like, I had some fun with it. I thought it was okay. I think with Team Fortress 2, I maybe missed the boat a little bit. Like, I came to it a little bit late. I never really played the Team Fortress mod when it was about. And then by the time Team Fortress 2 came out, I was already kind of more interested in console games rather than PC games at the time. So I missed the boat on it a little bit. And then it was tainted for me that, like, something people don't talk about so much anymore is, like, the Team Fortress hats and stuff. That, like, in terms of microtransactions, they went hard on, like, loot boxes and microtransactions. And that's kind of my overwhelming memory of Team Fortress 2 is there's a ton of stuff that people spend insane amounts of money in here that I just don't care about, and I don't understand how anyone else cares about. So Team Fortress is a very good game, I'm sure. No, I'm going to put it in good. I don't think it's good. I need to separate these. Until Dawn. Until Dawn, I'm going to say, is a great game. Until Dawn is kind of everything I wanted it to be. It did a very, very good job of being a sort of story-based horror game. It's not too long. It doesn't take itself too seriously, but there's some great performances in there. There's some fun twists. The story's good. The gameplay's not incredible. Like, the gameplay might drag it down a little bit. Maybe I'll put it in very good, because the gameplay, like the quick time events and stuff like that, there is some kind of bullshit involved in that, which is kind of annoying. But it is a very good game. If you want a short horror game, you should definitely play it. I enjoyed Man of Medan as well. I haven't actually played Little Hope yet, but I will do at some point, I'm sure. It's also, I really like the stuff they were trying with co-op and that, where like you could play with a friend, but you'd see like slightly different things and stuff like that. I think that is very, very interesting. Right, Warframe. Warframe, I'm going to say, is decent. I realise like all of these games are games that for someone will be like their favourite game, the game that they've spent thousands of hours in. To me, I've wanted to like Warframe so much. Like, I've really tried getting into it at least like 4 or 5 times now. And I've had friends who are super into it, who have tried to get me into it. I've played loads of co-op with people, you know, so we're communicating, giving it the best chance it possibly could. And I always really like it for a couple of hours, and then I start realizing, you know, you get past the tutorials and stuff, and you get to the point where it's like, okay, so if you want to build this, you have to run this mission 40 times to try and get this resource, and it's like, no. Like, it starts getting super repetitive. Warframe's got, like, the worst of the grindiness from free-to-play games, and that really, really bothered me a lot. So that was a shame. Uncharted 4. Uncharted 4, I'm going to put in very good. I think Uncharted 4 was one of the weaker Uncharted games. And I really like Uncharted. Uncharted 1 and 2 I absolutely loved. And Uncharted 3 I was like, that's okay. And then Uncharted 4, I just didn't love it while I was playing it, as much as I think a lot of people did. It was one of those things where it's like, there's nothing really wrong with the game, it's just I was kind of burnt out on the formula, and it does not stray far from the formula at all for Uncharted 4. There's not much in terms of gameplay or anything beyond spectacle, really, that the other games hadn't done. And, like, even the spectacle, I think I enjoyed the locations in the other Uncharted games a bit more. Like, Uncharted I didn't find a particularly memorable game either. Like, I couldn't tell you a lot about the story of Uncharted 4, which is a shame. Right, Yakuza. Is this Yakuza Kiwami 2? I'm going to have this as a stand-in for all of the Yakuza. Oh no, Yakuza 0 is down there as well. So Yakuza Kiwami 2, I have not played. Not going to talk about it. I haven't played Kiwami 2. I've played Yakuza Kiwami. I've played a little bit of Like a Dragon and Yakuza 0. But I haven't played the second one yet. Battlefield 1. Battlefield 1, I would say, is just decent. Like, Battlefield 1 was the first Battlefield game, literally out of all of the Battlefield games, where I was like, nah, I'm not really enjoying this that much. Like, literally, from when it came out, I probably played it for a few weeks, and then was like, no, I'm kind of done with this. I didn't play any of the DLC or anything like that. I have heard of people going back to it and saying that they ended up really liking it, and they loved some stuff about it. But nothing really worked for me. Like, even the stuff that should really speak to me, like the big, like, Behemoth stuff, you know, the massive train and the Zeppelin and all stuff like that. I thought that that was going to be more exciting. I thought that was going to be something that I'd really like, but it just always seemed a bit janky and a bit stupid. I just didn't get into it at all, which, like, is a real shame because, like, the Battlefield games in general were awesome, and then Battlefield 5 ended up feeling very, very similar to me. It's a shame. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, this is a really difficult one, because if this was like nostalgia, I'd be like, amazing. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, I loved it when it came out so much. But when they released that re-release fairly recently, where it was like Tony Hawk's 1 and 2, and you could play it again, I've been a bit like, maybe it wasn't as good as I thought it was. Maybe it was good at the time, but stuff surpassed it since. You know, there's a lot of stuff where it's like, the maps are quite sparse, the event types and stuff like that aren't that interesting. I think it's like dropping down to maybe just being good now. And I feel like I have to rate these by like how I feel about them now. I don't feel like I could talk about them how they are at the time, because that's so subjective. Like, you know, games that I played in when I was in secondary school or university are going to be so much higher because like I had so much more time for them and I bought so few games then that I was like way more into them. Whereas nowadays, you know, I play loads of stuff. So I'm going to put Tony Hawk's down to good, which I know is a shame, but it's just that re-release really made me realize that like I don't love Tony Hawk's as much as I thought I did. Red Dead Redemption 2. Red Dead Redemption 2, I don't see how you could not put that as amazing. It's like, it is an incredible game. It does some incredible things in terms of world building. The like environmental storytelling is some of the best that there is in any game. It's not a masterpiece. I think the controls are stupid, and Red Dead Online wasn't great. That was a bit of a miss, which is a shame, which I don't know if that should really affect the score, but it does a bit to me that it was a disappointment, the online side of it for me. I might go back to it one day because I've heard they've added tons of stuff. I keep getting adverts for it. But yeah, at the moment, I just say, the single player was incredible. It hasn't made me want to go back to it. I think there's some pacing issues, like the opening takes way too long. But I really, really did like it a lot. Like, the story's just so good. They did such a good job of, like, I think everyone went into Red Dead Redemption 2 being like, I wish I was playing as John. Like, this isn't as good. You know, like, I'm not playing as a character that I played as in the first one. And then you get, like, learn to love, it's his name Arthur, I think, in Red Dead Redemption 2. And even his horse and all of the people in the camp. Like, Rockstar do storytelling really well, I think. I loved Red Dead 2. It was really, really good. Right, Dota 2. I'm going to say it's bad. I'm going to say Dota 2 is bad. I think Dota 2 is a good example of a game where some people got really good at it early on, like maybe when Dota was a mod, and then those people, Dota 2 was probably everything they wanted. Dota 2 was like this incredible thing, and obviously it's a juggernaut, like ridiculous numbers of people play it. It makes insane amounts of money. When I've played it, I think the onboarding of like getting new players in is pretty terrible. The community is incredibly toxic and horrible and hate new players, apparently hate new people coming to play the game, and I generally don't have much fun when I play Dota. Like, the matches go on way too long, it's needlessly complex with all of the item buying and stuff like that. I just don't think Dota 2 is that good. I think other games have done the MOBA genre much better, and other games are much nicer to new players. Fire Emblem, never played, don't care about it. Halo Reach, I'm going to say Halo Reach was amazing. I'm going to put Halo Reach up there. Halo Reach is another game. You started to see a like theme here that I bloody love stories in games. I think the story of Halo Reach is the best that the Halo story's ever been. Like, I think they did a really good job of setting up the whole team. Like, the characters are really good. The whole story, the overall story is quite different compared to most video games. There were some incredible set pieces in there, some incredible levels. I really loved the multiplayer. I know not everyone did. Like, not everyone liked the abilities and stuff like that. But I thought it was really good. I still think for me, Reach might be like peak Halo. Like, that was my favorite Halo game. And I think it being like Bungie's last Halo was a big part of that. Like, I think that was like Bungie at their peak for Halo. It was so good. I loved Halo. Sonic Mania, didn't play. Don't really care about Sonic. Hat in Time, didn't play. There's a lot of these that are going to be list. Now, this is an interesting one. Batman Arkham City. I would say Batman Arkham City is... I'm going to say it's good. I think, like, for me, I much preferred Arkham Asylum. I much preferred the sort of closer focus on a smaller game. I think with Arkham City, it was interesting, the idea of having a city, but it isn't like the city that you know. It's not Gotham. And they kind of ruined the atmosphere of it by having those stupid Riddler challenges everywhere. Like, really ruined the look. You had these green glowing bits everywhere, which I thought was kind of stupid. So, Batman Arkham City was still a good game, but I don't think it was anywhere near as good as Arkham Asylum, personally. I feel like the Batman Arkham games have steadily got worse. Arkham Knight might be better than Origins, but it's pretty close. Neither of them that great. I literally don't know what that is. Jungle Party. I've got no idea what that is. Modern Warfare 3, good. This is where we start getting to the really controversial stuff. And I will do another one of these for Call of Duty things, so check the channel out for that. Modern Warfare 3, I'm going to again put in good. I think I'd struggle to put any Call of Duty game below good. Like, I think all of them have been good. But Modern Warfare 3, I don't find it particularly memorable. Modern Warfare 3, I was thinking about this the other day, actually. It was the first Call of Duty game where I felt burnt out on Call of Duty. It was the first Call of Duty game where I was like, oh, it's another one of these. rather than being excited. Because bear in mind, before then, you'd had Call of Duty 1 was on PC. It was something completely new. The campaign was so different from anything I'd played before, of the different viewpoints and stuff. Call of Duty 2 was a launch title for the 360. I really got into the multiplayer of Call of Duty 2. Absolutely loved it. Call of Duty 3 was weird and a bit stupid, but at least they tried a load of different stuff with vehicles in multiplayer and stuff like that. Then obviously you had Modern Warfare. That was a complete sort of reinvention of the series. You had Black Ops, which was doing stuff in really interesting ways. Modern Warfare 2 was like, okay, you love Modern Warfare, we're going to do it bigger and better and like add loads of stuff, and like that was kind of cool. And Black Ops 2, very good. Oh, World at War was in there somewhere. Sorry, I'm getting mixed up my timelines. I think World at War was maybe after Modern Warfare. And World at War I thought was really cool because it's like a lot of the Pacific stuff was really interesting, and obviously it added zombies, stuff like that. Then Modern Warfare 3 was like, oh, he's still doing this, it's still more of this story, and it just wasn't. I didn't find it that interesting. I didn't find the story that interesting. I didn't think the multiplayer was that interesting compared to like Modern Warfare 2. I just overall didn't like Modern Warfare 3 that much. It was still a good game. I like every Call of Duty game, but not incredible. Crash Bandicoot Racing I didn't play. I didn't play a lot of PlayStation games, so you'll see a lot of PlayStation games come here. I didn't have a PlayStation 1 or 2. I've played some of those games since I've gone back to them, but at the time I wasn't so keen on them. Mass Effect 2. I'm still reluctant to put something in Masterpiece, but I think I'm going to put it here in Amazing. Mass Effect 2, like the combat and stuff isn't that great, to be fair. The Mass Effect combats have never been that good. But recently going back and playing the Mass Effect trilogy, I love Mass Effect. Like, I'd forgotten how much I loved it. I hardly ever go back and replay games. So when I picked up the trilogy, I was a bit like, am I actually going to enjoy this? But I really did. Like, I just thought it was incredible. I loved the whole run through of it again. I love the characters so much. I love the universe. And Mass Effect 2 is the best one by far. Like, Mass Effect 2 tells an incredible story. It's really, really good. But yeah, a couple people in chat saying that, like, the combat was really good. Like, the Mass Effect 2 combat, yeah, it was better than Mass Effect 1, but it still was kind of clunky and weird and stupid, and I hated all of the inventory stuff. I think that's always been a problem for me with Mass Effect. Is like, I've never enjoyed the looting and inventory management and skills management. I've never thought it was that interesting compared to other RPGs, like, Fallout. Which is a shame. Right, Final Fantasy VII. I'm going to have to do this as the Final Fantasy VII remaster because I never actually finished Final Fantasy VII, the original. I played it a couple of times, but I've again, didn't have a PlayStation 1 when they were out. I didn't play Final Fantasy VII when it came out, but I did play the remake, and the remake I would put up there as great. I think there's some stuff about Final Fantasy VII Remake that I still can't talk about because I still think it's a big spoiler. But you need to play it, especially if you played the original. But even if you didn't, I think there's a lot you can get out of it. The music's incredible. Some of the characters are really awesome. There's a lot of like busy work. There's a lot of kind of boring sections, like when you're trying to turn the big lights on and stuff like that. There's some dull bits in it. But overall, it's an incredible game. Like, it's a really, really cool story, and I love it. I'm just seeing Maida, my mod, saying that Final Fantasy VII should be a masterpiece. I just think there's a lot of jank in Final Fantasy VII. I think there's a lot of stuff. I'm not a big fan of JRPGs, and the stuff that's more JRPG-ish about it, like the grinding and like the areas like the train yard and stuff, where you're just running around for bloody ages doing nothing that progresses the story. It's just getting from one place to another. I find kind of dull. Watch Dogs. Now, this is the original Watch Dogs, the first Watch Dogs. I'm going to put... this is going to annoy Maida. Putting Watch Dogs up alongside Final Fantasy VII. I thought Watch Dogs was incredible. I thought Watch Dogs was a really, really good game. Obviously, there were problems with it. Obviously, it didn't do everything right. The protagonist is fairly unlikable. The city isn't incredibly exciting to explore. But I did think it had a really interesting tone. It was doing like open world games in a way that other games hadn't. It felt like a modern day open world game that was a lot more kind of like a normal world, rather than like the insanity that you'd get in Grand Theft Auto or Prototype or Infamous or things like that. It was much more grounded, and I really liked that. I enjoyed the story within that. I had a lot of fun with the multiplayer as well in Watch Dogs. I thought the multiplayer was really, really good, where like one person had to like hack the other person, then hide, and you had a certain amount of time to find them. That was a lot of fun. I think a lot of people passed that up. So I'm going to say Watch Dogs was great. I think the second one was better. Like, Watch Dogs 2 was better, and then Legion was much, much worse. But yeah, I'm going to put it there. So, Uncharted 3. I'm going to put this very good. So, it's just above Uncharted 4. I think Uncharted 3 did the spectacle very well. Like, that's probably the peak of it for the series in terms of, like, spectacular set pieces and stuff. The combat was good. I thought the story was still really good. Like, it was funny. There's a lot of good acting in it and stuff like that. I still don't think it was, like, incredible. I still don't think I care that much about the story, and it's hard to look past the idea that Drake is kind of an absolute psychopath. You know, he's a serial killer that just goes around cracking jokes after he's murdered like 200 people, which is really upsetting and a bit weird. But if you look past that and just see it as, like, you know, an Indiana Jones style adventure, it's a very good game. It's very good. It's a good game to show off hardware. Like, I think the Uncharted games have always been a good way to be like, this is why the PlayStation's so powerful. Metal Gear Rising, I'm going to also put in very good. Metal Gear Rising, Revengeance. Revenge with a Vengeance. Revengeance was a game that I really surprised myself by how much I enjoyed it. Like, I thought the trailer was stupid. I never really cared about Metal Gear Solid. Then as soon as I started playing it, there's something that feels so good about that game. Like, they just control so well. The combat is so good. I absolutely loved it. So I'm putting that up there and very good. It's a very, very good game. I'd love for them to make a sequel for it. It did get repetitive. Like, the story was a bit silly, like everything Metal Gear is, but it was very good. I just keep looking down at these and thinking like, oh my god, there's still so many left, and I'm going to annoy so many people. So I might start speeding this up a little bit. Let's do them a bit quicker. I'll talk a little bit less about each of them. Bloodborne. Bloodborne is a great game. Bloodborne is a great game. I've never finished it though. I do find it hard. Like, I finished Dark Souls 2 and 3. Haven't ever finished Dark Souls 1 or Bloodborne or Sekiro. I find Bloodborne quite difficult. Like, I found the sort of having to be constantly aggressive and stuff like that a lot trickier than games like Dark Souls, where you could be a little bit more defensive and do a lot more dodging. The first time I played it, I got completely stuck on Father Gascoigne and just couldn't get past it, and that counted a bit against it for me. But the world is really awesome. It's got a really cool aesthetic, better than Dark Souls. I think it like speaks to me more than that. It's very cool. Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain. I'm going to say this is a bad game. Like I said, I'm not a big Metal Gear Solid fan. I haven't finished any of the Metal Gear Solid games except for Revengeance, Metal Gear Rising. My problem with Metal Gear Solid 5 was I was really enjoying it up to the halfway point, and then there's a point in the halfway where it's like, now you're going to do all of the other missions again, but we're going to make them a little bit harder. And there's not really a good story reason for that. It's just like, we're going to keep on repeating these missions. And it's like, this is ridiculous that they released a game in this state, that it clearly wasn't finished. It clearly stopped halfway through the story, and then they just padded it out by making you repeat all the missions, which is really stupid. They had these incredible open worlds. How hard would it have been for them to make some new interesting missions in it? I think Metal Gear Solid 5 is a bad game because of that. It started off really well. Some of the systems are really good. The world is kind of cool. Some of the characters are cool, but it was stupid. Also, the whole quiet thing was incredibly creepy and pervy, no matter what anyone says. That whole thing of her having to like breathe through her skin or absorb sunlight through her skin or something, so that's why she runs around in a bikini, is ridiculous. Like, come on. Lego Star Wars 2. This is the complete... the complete trilogy. The original trilogy. I'm going to say this is great. I think there's a lot more that could be done with Lego Star Wars. Like, the later Lego games have done stuff that's a bit more interesting. They've added a bit more depth to it. But it did do a really good job of telling the Star Wars story. It's one of the better Star Wars games, which is saying something. I'm really looking forward to the Skywalker Saga. I'm sure that would be probably up there and amazing. But Lego Star Wars, I've got a lot of fond memories of. But it always felt like, oh, if only they could do this. If only they'd added this. You know, there's always like little annoying bits which are kind of frustrating, kind of boring. You want them to do more. And hopefully the Skywalker Saga will be that if they ever bloody release the game. Shadow of the Colossus. I'm going to put in... Oh, this feels mean. With the massive disclaimer that I didn't play it when it came out. I played it much, much later. I'm going to put it in decent. I think the controls in Shadow of Colossus are atrocious. They're really bad. Like, I love the idea of Shadow of Colossus. I love the art style of it. The actual design of the Colossi is really, really cool. But I really hate the control. I don't find it a fun game to play, and that's quite a significant problem with a video game. If you don't find it fun to play, that's an issue. So I'm going to say that's decent. I'm also going to put in decent XCOM 2. I think XCOM 2 was just decent. I Again, I wasn't a massive fan of the XCOM games before I started playing XCOM 2. Like, I had played the first XCOM and the underwater one. I can't remember what it's called. But XCOM 2 I find more stressful than anything, and I get frustrated. You know, you take a shot and it says you've got 100% chance of hitting, and you bloody miss. That's unforgivable. XCOM 2 is going to go in decent for that. It's a shame, because I can understand why some people love those games, and people get really attached, and people do the Iron Man things where they don't save and load games and stuff like that, and when a character's dead, it's dead, and you get attachments to them. But whenever I've played it, I've just never had that much fun with them. Brotherhood. Amazing. Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. I think I'd struggle to put an Assassin's Creed game up in Masterpiece, because all of them have that kind of slightly repetitive thing. You know, you're going around doing the towers and stuff. I feel like Brotherhood had the least repetition of any game, and I loved the setting. I loved all of the characters. I thought the story was really good. Brotherhood is like peak Assassin's Creed for me. I really love Assassin's Creed 2 and Brotherhood, but Brotherhood is probably my favourite. And I think, is it that one, or it might be Assassin's Creed 2? One of them you get to punch a pope in the face, which is quite funny. So yeah, that's going to go up as amazing. Grand Theft Auto 4. Grand Theft Auto 4 is going to go in as very good. It's one of those games, this is a good example of a game that when it came out, it was amazing, and I was blown away by it, and I easily would have put it up in Masterpiece. Looking back on it, there's a lot of stuff, you know, the driving is super weird in it. The pacing of it is annoying. Obviously, like, people make jokes about, like, your cousin Roman ringing you all the time to ask you to do stuff. But it, like, actually is really annoying when you're playing the game. There's a lot of stuff in that which is just frustrating more than anything. So I'm going to put that down in very good. It was a super cool world that you built in. It was really nice. It was so different from every other game. Like, there's never been another game like Grand Theft Auto 4. Even like Grand Theft Auto 5 isn't anything like Grand Theft Auto 4. But it's just too clunky to be above there. Metal Gear Solid 3, I haven't played it. I know people say I should. Black Flag, I'm going to say is... Yeah, I'm going to say Black Flag's great. Black Flag's one of the better Assassin's Creed games. I had an awesome time with it. I really, really enjoyed it. I loved the ship combat and everything like that. My main problem with Black Flag was I didn't think the story was that good. Like, I didn't think the overall story was that interesting. I didn't find it memorable. But the actual gameplay of it was brilliant, and it looked amazing. That's one of the few Assassin's Creed games I'd love a sequel to. Like, I'd love for them to do like an updated version of Black Flag with like a, you know, modern day graphics and stuff like that. I think it'd be really good. Smite, I'm going to say, is really bad. I've never really understood Smite. Like, I've played it every now and then, and it always feels to me like it's like a mobile game that you can also play on console for some reason. And, like, it looks really, really ugly. The gameplay seems really messy. The controls don't feel tight. The community seems to be mostly children, as far as I can tell. And I'm sure there's probably some people watching this who are like, no, you just don't understand. You've never got into Smite. And it's like, fair enough, but it makes a terrible first impression. The idea of it being, like, loads of, like, gods and mythological creatures and stuff like that fighting in this sort of vaguely MOBA type thing seems really interesting, but it's just whenever I've seen it, you know, and occasionally I'll stop in on a stream of it and be like, maybe I'll like it now, and it's like, nope, I don't. It's super ugly and I hate it. So I'm going to say really bad. I'm not going to say horrible. It's not like offensively bad. It's just I don't understand why anyone else plays it. Dooms. This is 2016 Doom. Doom 2016 is... Yeah, I'm going to say it's amazing. Doom 2016 is really, really good. Like, it's a really good example of a game where, like, the gameplay serves the narrative so well. The music fits everything. The controls are so tight. Like, it's just an incredible thing. When you watch people who are really good at it, it's impressive to watch. It was also super innovative. Like, the whole thing of, like, getting different things by using your flamethrower or doing the melee kills or chainsaw or whatever it was. All of those different things worked really, really well. It was amazing that it did so well, I think. Like, you know, trying to reboot the Doom series was such a big task, and they did it in such an incredible way, where it's not actually that much like the original Doom, but it gives you the same feeling that original Doom gave you, which was really, really impressive. I think they did a good job. Borderlands, I'm going to say was good. Borderlands 2. I enjoyed playing Borderlands 2. I played it a lot. It's one of the few games I've played through all the way repeatedly. But I think the other Borderlands games have maybe tainted my memory of it a little bit. That it's like, there's a lot of kind of boring stuff. When I've played it, gone back and played it now, I found like the writing isn't that funny, the jokes aren't that funny, the characters aren't that good. I think there's a lot to not like about Borderlands 2, and there's a lot of stuff like to do with the systems of it, like the, you know, getting unlimited weapons, but it's like, but not really. There's like 10 weapons, and then each of those has like, you know, little tweaked variables for things, like slightly different versions of it, but there's not that many weapons that really feel different. Occasionally you'll get something insane, but it's rare. Some of the DLC was incredible, some of the DLC was bloody awful. You know, some of the DLC was just a waste of time, which is a real shame. So I'm gonna say it was a good game. Like, Borderlands 2 is a good game, but I don't think Borderlands has ever got past there for me. And like, part of that might be Borderlands 3 tainting my memory of it, that I just found Borderlands 3 so boring. Final Fantasy 15. I only played a little bit of this. I didn't like it. I think to me, it felt like, and this is something that's been very common for most Final Fantasy games for me, it felt like it was wasting my time so much of the time. Like, so much of the time was just spent going to areas to fight a monster that had nothing to do with the story, nothing to do with any kind of interesting narrative. It was just like, here's an extra thing to do to waste another half an hour. And I really annoyed that. I get very annoyed when I talk about Final Fantasy games, and people are always like, oh, well, when you get about 15 hours into it, then it gets really good. It's like, I don't want to spend 15 hours not enjoying a game, so eventually I can start to enjoy it. Like, I just don't think it's worth it. So that's why I'm putting Final Fantasy 15. I'm just seeing, occasionally I look over at chat and see there's some people being vaguely angry with some of the things I'm saying. Watch Dogs 2. Watch Dogs 2 I'm going to put up in amazing. Watch Dogs 2 was one of those games that I bounced off hard when it came out. I didn't think it was that good. I was expecting something like gritty and dark like the first Watch Dogs. This one's all sunshine and like kids being like, yeah, extreme. And it sort of like felt a little bit like a Monday version of that movie Hackers. And it felt very cringy when I first played it. I went back to it a little while before Legion came out and thought, no, I'm going to finish it. I'm going to play through it because I did enjoy the first one. And I'm so glad I did. Like, Watch Dogs 2 is incredible. There's some really cool cats in it. There's a really good variety of different things that you can do in it, different objectives. The world is absolutely awesome. Like the San Francisco Bay Area, they do some really cool stuff with the map. It looks really bright and vibrant. There's just so much heart to it. Like, I really enjoyed it so much. I was really surprised, actually, how much I enjoyed it. I would say Watch Dogs 2 is up there as like one of Ubisoft's best ever games. It was a real shame that Legion didn't come close to it. Like, Legion wasn't anywhere near as good. Right, Dark Souls 3. I'm going to say Dark Souls 3 was good. I played all the way through Dark Souls 3 and it was fine. I think I only finished it because I wanted to like prove to myself that I could do it. I feel like the Dark Souls games, I've never loved them as much as other people do. Like, people talk about how amazing the world is and the storytelling. The storytelling is really crap. Like, the storytelling, it's one of those things where it's like, it's obtuse and it's subtle and it's confusing, but not in a way that's like really engaging. I think it's just as in like, it makes people who have spent the time to work it out feel a lot smarter than other people, and that's about it. But like, it's not the most like interesting story. It's not the most gripping narrative. And pretty much all of the narrative, which I know is like a selling point of the game, but pretty much all the narrative has happened before you're playing the game. Like, so really you're just wandering around this ruined world, which is a real shame. And like the same thing, Dark Souls 1, I'm going to put down to decent because, yeah, I'm going to put it decent. I can't put it in bad. Dark Souls 1, same sort of problems, but Dark Souls 1 also has some of the most annoying gameplay mechanics, like going to Blighttown and everything like causing you diseases and stuff like that. It was so stupidly annoying. I really didn't get on with Dark Souls 1 at all. Dark Souls 2 and 3 liked more. Dark Souls 1, no thank you. Right, Shadow of Mordor, which is this Shadow of War. Is this the second one? I don't know, probably. I'm going to say this was very good. It wasn't great. It wasn't like, I mean, obviously it's super derivative of Assassin's Creed. The story isn't that interesting, but the whole like Nemesis system and everything like that was super engaging, really interesting. I'm very annoyed that they copyrighted it so other people can't use something like that, because it was super interesting. Also the controls are really good. Like it's like a good power fantasy open world game where like after you've spent not even very long, after you've got a few levels, a few skill points and stuff, you can do some insane stuff in that game, just going around an enemy camp and killing all of them before they even notice you're there. I think it's really good fun, and then the Nemesis system really elevates it. Otherwise it'd probably be down in good with like Arkham City, but that Nemesis system is so good where like when you kill an enemy there's a chance that they'll actually just be injured and they'll come back for revenge later, or if they kill you they'll get stronger and they'll get promoted and then you'll find them in the world again. It's super interesting. I think that's good. Right, Need for Speed. I've got no idea which Need for Speed this is. I've got no idea. I mean, I would say I'll put all of the Need for Speed games in decent. Like, Need for Speed Underground is obviously, if that is Need for Speed Underground, maybe would be a bit higher, because Need for Speed Underground was like super cool and like got everyone involved in like putting neon lights under their car and stuff like that, which was very cool. All of the other games have been like, they're okay racing games. They're not super memorable. They're not like, the campaigns or stories or anything aren't particularly interesting. The cities that they're in aren't particularly interesting. The tracks and stuff. The cars don't look that great or anything like that. But Need for Speed Underground was a lot of fun, so I'll leave that there. Super Mario Odyssey. This is going to be another controversial thing. I'm tempted to say... no, I can't do that. I'll say it's decent. So I like Mario games. Like, I've always been a Nintendo fan. And, you know, my first console was a Super Nintendo or Super Famicom. Then I got an N64, then a GameCube, then a Wii U, all of that sort of stuff. Mario Odyssey, I just felt was lacking something compared to Mario 64, Mario Galaxy. There's something really strange about it that just didn't feel right. And after I finished the whole game in a weekend. I played through the entire thing. And then afterwards I was like, well, I'm never going to play that again, and just never thought of it. Like, I can't remember a single interesting thing in that game. You know, there's stuff in the trailer, like, you know, you putting the hat on the T-Rex and stuff, but that's like a really tiny bit of the game. I just didn't think it had a particularly interesting world. I didn't think the characters came across as particularly interesting. Like, you know, Mario was a lot less likable than that for some reason. I don't know, I just didn't feel like Mario Odyssey had the heart of something like Mario 64, which is a real shame. Like, gameplay-wise, it's probably good. Devil May Cry 5, it's good. Devil May Cry 5 is good. It's another one of those games where I think if I was really good at it, I would get a lot more out of it, but I'm not, so I just kind of play through on the normal difficulty, get to the end, see the credits, and I'm like, yeah, that was fine. I do like how spectacular stuff looks when it goes well, and when you learn like a combo that's really powerful, it is a lot of fun, but I don't think like I'm really the target audience for it. Right, Soul Calibur. This is Soul Calibur 6, which I haven't played that much of, but I don't think there's any other Soul Caliburs on here, so I'm going to put this as the... I think this is going to be the Soul Calibur for me. I don't know, I'll move it around later if I find it. Soul Calibur, the Soul Calibur games in general, again, decent. They're okay fighting games. I love the stuff they've done with other characters. I loved it when, was it Soul Calibur 3 or 2 that had the Star Wars characters in? That was super interesting. I like the whole fighting system. It's probably one of the fighting games I've enjoyed more over my time in fighting games, but I've never got super into it or anything like that. They're always very pretty, which is cool. Right, now we're going to go... We've got some games I'm going to hop through a lot quicker right now. So it's going to be a speed round. So, Assassin's Creed Odyssey. It was good. The world is huge, the game takes way too long, but they do some really interesting stuff with Greek philosophers and stuff as characters, which I really like. I loved the way they brought RPG elements into Assassin's Creed. I thought that was very, very good. And it looks gorgeous. It's a gorgeous looking game. Actually, I might put it as very good. It is very good. It's at least as good as Shadow of War. It's just too bloody long. Mortal Kombat 11. As far as fighting games go, it's very, very good. It's probably my favourite fighting game series. I love playing it. I love playing it with my friends who don't really play many fighting games. None of us are super into it. It's fun having like the crazy characters and the fatalities and the special moves and all of the levels and stuff. I think they do a really good job of it. Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Now, this isn't Warzone. I think I saw Warzone somewhere else. So this is just Call of Duty Modern Warfare. I'm going to put as good. Like, Call of Duty Modern Warfare, for the multiplayer, for the campaign. I'm not going to talk about Spec Ops because I hated Spec Ops with a passion. It was good. The multiplayer was okay. I would say the campaign was probably the strongest thing of the package outside of Warzone. Like, the campaign was really good. I think they did a really good job of doing some like interesting stuff with lighting. Obviously, those kind of Spec Ops missions, like the one where you're in London going through a flat, was really awesome, and that's something they hadn't really seen in Call of Duty before. So yeah, it was good. It was a good game. I just didn't really click with the multiplayer as much as some others. Doom, the original. I said I'm going to do this from what it's like now. I'm going to say this is bad. Like, I do go back occasionally and load up Doom on the Xbox because it's in Game Pass and stuff, and it's not a great game now. It's kind of hard to play it. Obviously, it's super simple. It's hard to, like, overstate how good it was at the time and how, like, incredibly fun it was compared to other games that have come out at the time. But now, going back to it, it's not a retro game that I love that much. Half-Life, is this Half-Life 2? I'm assuming this is Half-Life 2. I'm going to go out on a limb and say this is Half-Life 2. Half-Life 2, I would say, is a masterpiece. Half-Life 2 is up there as, like, this is something that is important. I still don't think many other single-player games have reached the heights of what Half-Life 2 did in terms of storytelling, in terms of like immersion in the world, really interesting weapons, really interesting enemies to fight. The overall story was really good. Like, Half-Life 2 was incredible. I think it was it was a masterpiece. And it surprises me that more games haven't tried to copy Half-Life, but maybe they just can't because it was just so good. League of Legends is horrible, and everyone who plays it is horrible. To me, specifically, when I try and play it, and like I've tried to play it again, a bit like Dota and stuff, try and get in it every now and then all you get met with is people being like, oh my god, you don't have to play, just sit there at spawn and don't do anything. And it's like, this isn't a fun way to get involved in a game. So I hate League of Legends, and everyone who plays it hates me. Overwatch is good. It's like, Overwatch is one of those games where it's like, objectively, I'd say it's probably great. But to play it, I got really bored of it quite quickly, and I feel like they didn't do enough to make me want to go back to it. Like, there wasn't enough variety in the stuff that they added. It always just felt like more of the same rather than refreshing it. I know they're doing Overwatch 2 soon, which is kind of interesting, but I feel like the single-player stuff is, to me at least, I'm assuming the single-player stuff is just going to feel like playing against bots. I hope I'm wrong. Like, I hope that it's way more interesting than that, but everything I've seen so far, it just looks like it's still just the same multiplayer game with a few new kind of modes tacked onto it, which isn't that great. Need water from going through all these. The Crash Bandicoot trilogy. I think Crash Bandicoot games are bad. I think, like, again, I didn't play them when they came out. I played the trilogy later on. Like, it's super simple. It's super frustrating. Like, some of them, the levels are really difficult, but not in a way where it's like, oh, this is really challenging and I'm developing skills to beat it. Just in the kind of, oh, I need to learn just how far I can go on this platform, you know, walking into the invisible void before I have to jump. It's not that interesting to play, so doing that. God of War, is this God of War 3? God of War 3 I thought was decent. It's an okay game. I think there's, again, a bit like one of the Uncharted games, it's got some cool set pieces. The combat is cool, but not for as good as the game is long. Like, I feel like the game could do with maybe being a bit shorter. But it's fine. I'm assuming that is God of War 3. Somebody tell me if, like, I'm doing the wrong thing. Dragon Ball Fighter, is that? I don't know. I don't really know Dragon Ball games. I'm going to put that there. Far Cry 3, I'm going to say, is very good. I was actually recommending someone to play Far Cry 3 the other day because I still think out of all of the Far Cry games we've had, it's probably the best one. It's like, the world was really good. Again, the story was actually really, really interesting in Far Cry 3. It was a lot better than the others. Like, the idea of kind of how much of a hero really are you was, I think, quite explored quite well in that, more so than it is in Far Cry 4 and 5. And yeah, I think the world is really nice. Like, it's such a beautiful tropical like paradise, and then you're going around doing absolutely horrible things. One thing I really love about Far Cry 3 that I didn't see that many people talking about at the time when it came out was how good the wildlife is. Like, there's so much wildlife depending on which area of the map you're in. Like, one time I went into the sea and there's like a massive manta ray goes past, and it's like loads of people probably played it and never even saw the manta rays, but they're huge. Like, really, really cool. Never played FIFA 20. There we go, made it. Tetris is obviously great. So, like, it's hard to say that Tetris isn't great. Like, it's such an addictive game. It's so good. I've been playing it from, like, when I had it on the Game Boy, the original Game Boy, all the way up to, like, Tetris. What's it called? Tetris, not Tetris Infinite. What's the newer one called? Whatever the new Tetris is called. They're all really good fun. It still holds up. It's incredible gameplay. It's as good. Fortnite is great. I would say I personally struggle with Fortnite because I hate the building. But so I only play Fortnite when there's the events, or when there's like something like when I added the Mandalorian and stuff like that. And that's like, that's enough for me. Like, I really enjoy that stuff. I think like they do stuff incredibly well. Again, it's not entirely for me. But whenever I do a Fortnite event, I'm always in awe of how good it is. And like, when I have gone back to play it occasionally, when I'm like playing against people who are terrible, I really enjoy it still. Like, as long as they're not building much and I'm not building much, I find it really good. The stuff they've done with licenses and characters is so bloody good. It's just amazing. World of Warcraft is a masterpiece, and I think like it's hard for me to put that anywhere lower than that. I know some of the recent expansions haven't been that good. I've actually bought the recent expansion and still haven't played it, just because I can't get back into it anymore. But I put so many years into World of Warcraft. I loved so much of my time in it. I made like real friends through it. I really enjoyed like hundreds of hours, maybe thousands of hours in World of Warcraft. It's hard not to see it as a masterpiece. I think it's done now. I think like in my head, it kind of ended after Legion, and I'm happy to leave it there. And I know it's kept on going. If I did it with like how it is now, I'd put it down as like really bad. But at its like, in terms of what it means to me, I think it has to be put there as a masterpiece. It's so hard not to see it as a masterpiece. Right, Pokemon Emerald, never played. God of War. God of War, I think, is up there as a masterpiece too. Like, the God of War, this is the reboot, this is the PlayStation 4 one, was just such a spectacular game. Like, again, like music, combat, story, the world. It was so good. It was so well paced. I loved everything about it. I didn't think the story was predictable at all. I thought it set up some really interesting things. Like, I really would struggle to think of something that I didn't like about God of War. Like, it was such an amazing game. And it's like, I get that there's like a lot of PlayStation games, especially PlayStation 4 games, that follow the same kind of thing of like, oh, it's a third-person action adventure where you like build up skills over time and you have like difficult relationships with family members and stuff. There's a lot of PlayStation exclusives like that, but there's a reason for it. It's because the stories are bloody good and they're a lot of fun to play. So yeah, God of War, masterpiece. Similarly, GTA 5, masterpiece. How could it not be? GTA 5's like, I mean, they're re-releasing it again for the third generation. And there's a reason, it's because so many people are playing it. Like, GTA Online is insanely good. I thought the story, the campaign was really, really good. The world is incredible, like, easily one of the best big open worlds. I had so much fun with it. I don't play it now very much, like I very rarely go back to it, but I really enjoyed my time with it. I can't wait for them to do like a Grand Theft Auto 6 if they ever bloody do. But I thought Grand Theft Auto 5 was incredible. Easily a masterpiece. Horizon Zero Dawn, I still haven't finished. I'm going to put it in decent because I keep bouncing off it. I've tried playing it like 4 or 5 times. I keep bouncing off and being like, I don't know if I'm actually enjoying myself doing this. Like, I feel like that's one of the worst of those Sony third-person action-adventure games. And it's like, I do love the art style and like creature design and stuff like that, but I just think the actual gameplay, when you're like, the stuff you can do in the world, all feels very, very samey and doesn't feel that interesting. And I don't really care about the characters that much. Like, I haven't really got invested in the story or anything like that, which is a real shame. Maybe when I eventually finish it, I will end up like liking that a lot more. Before the new one comes out, I will probably go back to it and try and finish it, but not yet. Yakuza 0, I haven't finished it yet. I'm still quite early on, so for now I'm going to put it as decent. It feels very similar to the other Yakuza games. I think all of the Yakuza games are good or decent. I think like they're super repetitive. Like, you're essentially running through and having the same fight over and over and over again. They do some awesome stuff with characters and they do some awesome stuff with mini games and like making the world feel alive. But they're just so long and repetitive. Like, so long and repetitive. And that's a real shame. Injustice, I'm going to put as good. I think Injustice wasn't as good as Mortal Kombat to me, but it's a lot of fun. Where did I even put Mortal Kombat? Did I put it up here? Yeah, there. Yeah, I think Injustice, like, I love the idea of it, like the characters. I really like DC characters and comic books, and they picked some quite interesting ones for it, but it's just kind of, it's another fighting game, isn't it? Like, it wasn't that different to Mortal Kombat, and I think that was a bit of a shame. Lego Indiana Jones is, I'm just going to say good. That's a new one for good. Oh, good, it's putting them like that. Lego Indiana Jones is good. It's not the best Lego game. I don't think the Indiana Jones films lend themselves that well to Lego because it's like, in terms of like what you actually do in the games, it's super similar from one film to the other. Like, people forget what happens differently in each of the different films. I think that covers 4 films in that. And it's like, there's some funny jokes, there's some funny bits in there, but I think like each level is so similar to the last that it's a real shame. There's much better Lego ones. Lego Star Wars, is this the Clone Wars one? I'm going to put this as bad just because I didn't like the Clone Wars, essentially. I've never liked the Clone Wars. I've tried watching it repeatedly and never got that into it, so I'm going to put it there. Super Mario Kart 8, I'm going to say this is... No, I'm going to say it's good. I think like it's a shame that it's like they haven't really done anything interesting with Mario Kart for so long now. Like, it used to be that whenever a new Mario Kart game came out, like, you know, from Mario Kart to Mario Kart 64 to Double Dash, like there'd be something really exciting and different about it. And Mario Kart 8 is just like, oh yeah, we're kind of done with Mario Kart now, so you can just have this game forever. Which is a real shame. It's a good game, it's like a good version of it, but I think it's just not that innovative anymore, which is a real shame. And yeah, playing by yourself isn't that good. Mario Galaxy, might be another controversial thing. I think my wife really likes Mario Galaxy. Again, I'm going to put it in good. I think it's definitely better than Odyssey. It's like more fun than Odyssey, and it's definitely more creative and stuff like that. But I personally didn't find the worlds as fun to explore as I did in like Mario 64, and I felt like once you've done like probably the first third of it, you end up doing a lot of things that are quite similar. Like I feel like to me the gameplay gets quite repetitive, and that could just be my problem with platformers maybe. Minecraft I'm going to say is a masterpiece. I feel like even though I don't play tons of Minecraft, I like watching Minecraft, and whenever I do play Minecraft, it just fills me with kind of awe and wonder that like the possibilities are so huge in Minecraft, and obviously the cultural impact it's had is so huge. It's hard to like see how you could argue like what could be better about Minecraft. Like, oh, you want the graphics to be better? There's like a million texture packs for it that are kind of officially supported now. You can put ray tracing in it if you want. The combat, I guess, isn't that great, but it more than makes up for it with the building and everything like that. There's just so much you can do in Minecraft. I think I'm so happy that it exists. Even though I don't play it a lot, I'm happy that it exists for people. Monster Hunter World. Monster Hunter World was good. I've never been a massive fan of Monster Hunter. It's super slow and clunky. I very much enjoyed World more than I have any of the other Monster Hunters. But it was, again, kind of once I'd finished it, I'd had enough of it and I didn't want to go back to it. Overcooked 2, I'm going to say is bad because it's just stress. It's like a well-designed game, but I don't like playing it because it's just bloody stressful. Like, it's a way to just make you have arguments with anyone who you want to play it with, so never play it with someone who you actually care about, otherwise you'll argue with them. Counter-Strike, I'm going to say, is bad for me. Again, I can appreciate that some people love Counter-Strike, but it's all about twitch aiming and shooting, and that's something that I'm terrible at in games. I have shaky hands, so I really hate Counter-Strike because I just find it incredibly frustrating. Pac-Man is very good. It's hard to say how Pac-Man isn't very good. It's obviously a very basic game, it's a very limited game. I don't think it's like a masterpiece or anything. Name Gear might disagree with me on that one. But it is very, very good. And it's like when they've re-released stuff like Pac-Man Championship Edition and stuff like that, it just reminds you how addictive that gameplay is. Like, it's very, very good. I would say personally to me it's not as good as Tetris, but it's very, very good. Right, the next game, Persona 5. I've not actually played it. My wife loves it. My wife's like 100%ed it and 100%ed Persona 5 Royal, so she loves it, but I've still not personally played it. The music is bloody catchy, but other than that, I don't know. Pokemon Sword and Shield, I think that is, I'm going to say is really bad because it's like the 60th time they've re-released the same Pokemon game, which is just annoying. Pong is bloody horrible. Pong's just a terrible game. It's like one of those things where historically, sure, it's important or whatever, but it's not a good game. It's not a fun game. Like, you will get bored of Pong within about 30 seconds of playing it. So, no, Pong's horrible. Portal 2 is... No, I wouldn't say it's quite a masterpiece. I think Portal 2 is amazing. Like, it's an awesome game. The co-op mode's awesome. The story is funny. I don't think it's the best story in the world, but it's very, very funny, which is quite hard for a game to do. And the puzzles are really tricksy. I just feel like I can't put it in the same sort of tier as some of these games, but it is very, 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 very good. And Portal 1, I'll just put a little bit below that, because Portal 1 is not as good as Portal 2, but it's still very, very good. Right, the Jackbox Party Pack. I don't know particularly Jackbox Party 6, but I'll put them in. I would say Jackbox Party Pack is decent. It's a really interesting idea. I'm glad they do them. The quality has declined as Jackbox Party Packs have gone on. Like... It started off really good with loads of really high quality games, and then it got slowly worse as it went on, which is a shame. Resident Evil 2, the remake. I would say it's decent. I didn't love it. Like, I thought it looked really, really cool, and some of the atmosphere was really good. It's a really good demonstration of how you can remake a game and do a really good job of that. But I really hate the thing chasing you all the time. It's got Mr. X. I really don't like that. I don't like how stupid the puzzles are, that you're in a police station. It's got all these dumb puzzles in it. I really hate the combat. I think the combat's bad. It's one of those things where I love the atmosphere. I love the way it looks. I love the idea behind the game, but I just don't like the gameplay at all. Resident Evil 4 is this. I'd put that in good. Resident Evil 4 was good. Again, I hate the combat. I hate the fact that you have to... It's one long bloody escort mission. I hate the guys with chainsaws. But the atmosphere was super creepy. I really enjoyed playing it, especially when it came out on the Wii. I really enjoyed the Wii version of it, actually, because it made the aiming a little bit easier. I quite like that. Sekiro, I would say, is decent. Sekiro was a good example of a game where it's like, it might have just been too hard for me. I got to I think I got to the point where you fight the big monkey. And I found it very, very difficult. Like, I was finding it a slog. Ended up watching the rest of it on YouTube and was like, I don't really want to play this anymore. It doesn't look like it got more fun from there out. I like a lot of those games like Dark Souls and stuff like that. I just don't find it that fun. It's like, I appreciate it for what it is. It's a very tough game. Like, there's a lot of skill involved in it, but I didn't think it was very entertaining. Super Metroid. Super Metroid is a great game, I would say. Super Metroid had an incredible atmosphere for a Super Nintendo game. Like, super oppressive, super scary. It was really interesting. That was like the first Metroidvania type game that I played. And I thought the whole idea of it was really cool, that, you know, you'd spend ages, you'd come back to the game and be like, okay, I need to try and work out how to get these rockets. And then when you did get some like upgrade or something, suddenly you were like, where can I use these, like, on the whole map? It's absolutely awesome. I loved Super Metroid, very good. Super Mario Bros. 2 was pretty bad. Super Mario Bros. 2, like, loads of people will know the story of that it was originally not a Mario Bros. Game, and then when they ported it over here, they just took some other Japanese game and slapped a Mario sprites on it. It's not a very good game. There's some funny stuff in it. It gave us Birdo, and Birdo's hilarious. But other than that, not that great. Super Mario Galaxy 2, shockingly, I've not actually played Super Mario Galaxy 2. I played it a tiny bit. I played like the first 2 levels and never got that far in it. I really didn't like the Wii, so I didn't play a lot of games on the Wii, especially towards the end of it. Terraria, I'm going to say, is decent. Terraria is one of those things where, like, it's... I can see how people can see it as similar to Minecraft, but it's obviously nowhere near as complex or creative as Minecraft. It's got a bit more of that, like, roguelike energy, which is quite cool. But again, I found it always kind of frustrating. More than anything, like, it gets to a point in Terraria where I just think it's just a mess of stuff going on and I can't track it. Too old for games like Terraria. Skyrim, I'm going to say is amazing. I'm not going to say it's a masterpiece. Like I said, I would struggle to say any Bethesda RPG is a masterpiece. But Skyrim's really bloody good, wasn't it? Like, it was an amazing world to explore. Like, so much fun finding caves and stuff like that. There's so many little stories in it. Every time I go back and play it, which is often because you have so many opportunities to go back and play it, thanks to Todd Howard, you find something new. Like, you find a new story, you find a new bit of environmental storytelling, something you haven't seen before. There's so many different ways you can build your character, even if you're always going to build a stealth archer. Skyrim is an amazing game. The Last of Us 1, I'm going to say, is decent, which might shock some people. The Last of Us 1, I don't think was, like, the best game ever. I thought it was overrated. I played it all the way through and I was like, yeah, this is pretty good, but I didn't think it was amazing, like, by any stretch of the imagination, which is a real shame, because I get that, like, I love the second one, I love the sequel. I don't know if it's on here, I assume it is somewhere. I, like, absolutely adored the sequel to it, but the first one, I just sort of felt, it was okay. I think I'd played a lot of games where they gave you a lot of choices up to then, and then I played that where you don't get any choices, and it's like, oh, well, this kind of sucks. I have to do what this person wants, because I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't make those choices, and it felt like it took the agency away from me. Breath of the Wild, I'm going to say, is very good. I really loved Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, and I was kind of disappointed that Breath of the Wild took massive elements out of Zelda out of it. So, like, the lack of dungeons in Breath of the Wild was a massive deal to me. Like, it's obviously a very good game and it looks beautiful and it's amazing they got it running on a Switch and the music's really good and everything like that, but I don't think the story's very good. Not that the story's been that good on that many Zelda games, but, like, the lack of dungeons really ruined it for me. Like, some of the shrines were kind of interesting little puzzles, but the main kind of 4 things that were kind of like mini dungeons just weren't that fun. They weren't that interesting. You had, like, basically all of your abilities at the very beginning of the game, which meant that, like, you weren't getting that progression of new abilities. It kind of felt the same all the way through. I definitely know that I ruined Zelda a bit for myself, Breath of the Wild, I was focusing too much on the main story. There's, like, whole parts of that game I've never seen. I didn't spend ages exploring it like I know a lot of people did. But yeah, as a Zelda game, I just think it was a very good game, but it's not in the same league for me as, like, Ocarina or Majora's Mask, which are much better. Or The Wind Waker, which I would put as an amazing game. I loved Wind Waker. The remake of it was really good, where they sort of, like, shortened some of the annoying quests where you had to find something. I thought it's an incredibly beautiful game, one of the most beautiful games I've ever played. I loved Wind Waker so much, like, playing through it. I thought it was absolutely spectacular. And it's one of the Zelda games that I think has a really good story. It has a really solid story that's really interesting, has some amazing reveals in it. I loved Wind Waker a lot. Then Ocarina of Time is a masterpiece. I bloody love Ocarina of Time. I still think it's an incredible game. I think so much of it holds up really well. It's like, okay, some of the combat isn't amazing, but other than that, it's just spectacular. That does have a really good story. The exploration is insane. Like, it's so interesting, like all of the different worlds, so many different characters you end up caring about. The whole mechanic of like traveling backs and forwards through time was so cool because you get attached to all these characters and then suddenly you see like what becomes of them in 7 years, and like that was really, really cool. I feel like I don't know if I've ever been as invested in a game as I was in Ocarina of Time. Like, I bloody love Ocarina of Time. I really wish they'd remake that. Like, a remake of Ocarina would be incredible. Uncharted 2, I'll probably put it where I put Uncharted 3. It's very, very good. I thought Uncharted 2 and 3 were very similar, but really, really good. I absolutely love them. Like, they were, again, very spectacular. I thought, like, graphically they look amazing, especially for the time they came out in. But it's kind of hard to like the main character. You find him funny, but when you think about it too much, it's like he's kind of upsetting and scary. The Walking Dead, the Telltale series. I'm going to say this was good. I think like the first few episodes were amazing. Like, they were really, really amazing. And then kind of it trailed off. It couldn't sustain it. Once you start seeing through the cracks in Walking Dead, like if you do a second playthrough and you make different choices and you realize basically the same things happen, it really kind of ruins the game. So it's like, I wouldn't ever go back and play Walking Dead again. Just stick to your choices. But I think I've slowly realized before the end of the first season how the game was manipulating you into feeling bad about everything. And there wasn't ever a good choice. There wasn't a way to make the right choice for anything. Which was interesting, but it was kind of, a bit manipulative. The Witcher 3, I'm going to say, is very good. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is a very good game. I think it's another case of a game that was maybe a bit longer than it needed to be. There was a lot of stuff in the world where it's like, some locations are really interesting, but some were just like boring enemy camps with like a load of creatures or a load of bandits and no real story behind them, which was a shame. The story was pretty good, but I didn't think it was amazing. I didn't think it was like, it's not on the same level for me as things like Final Fantasy VII, or even Watch Dogs. I think I probably preferred the story of Watch Dogs, which feels like a shocking thing to say now. But yeah, the Witcher 3 was good. Like, it was a very pretty game. The combat, I found the combat quite satisfying. I quite liked it. I like the main characters in it. I think there's a lot of interesting characters. I just think overall it kind of felt a bit meandering. It felt a bit ploddy. I haven't played all the DLC. I still haven't played Blood and Wine, which everyone says is better than the main game. But yeah. So, oh man, we've got so much stuff still left to go through. Yakuza 4, haven't played. Yakuza, is this free? I think that's Yakuza 3. I don't know. I'm going to assume it is and say I haven't played. Apex, I'm going to say is good. I like Apex. I don't love it. I think I hate the fact that it kind of ruined the idea of there ever being a Titanfall Battle Royale, or maybe even a Titanfall 3. It is a good game. It's a good Battle Royale, but just for me personally, I find it very repetitive. I think every game feels the same of it. I don't think you get like the crazy moments that you get in a game like Warzone or even PlayerUnknown or Fortnite, which is a shame. Celeste, I've barely played. I'm not going to say that I've played that. Is that Chrono Trigger? I haven't played that. Dishonored 2 is a great game. Dishonored 2 is I'm going to say it's amazing, actually. Dishonored 2, with the movement, the story, the setting, Dishonored 2 was bloody amazing. It's one of like the best RPGs in terms of, if you think of it as an RPG, in terms of like abilities and your interactions in the combat and everything like that. It's so good. It's so cool. It's like just the right aesthetic for me. That sort of like blend of a bit of steampunk, a bit of gothic, a lot of like sort of aristocracy type stuff. I really, really like that kind of aesthetic. It was very cool. I'm super excited about Deathloop because I like Dishonored so much. Dishonored 1 I would put as great. It's like, I think Dishonored 2 was like everything Dishonored 1 was, but better. That was another amazing game for environmental storytelling, for finding these buildings, finding these rooms, and then like being able to track who lived there and what happened to them. And then sometimes coming across those people later and being able to interact with them was very, very cool. Firewatch is a great game. I'm tempted to put Firewatch in amazing, but I feel like the second half of Firewatch isn't as good as the first half. Firewatch is an amazing indie game. Like, in terms of atmosphere, it's super, super cool. It's a beautiful game. I think the voice actors did a really, really good job. It's very emotional. I think it's really, really great. I genuinely would put Firewatch above these games. I'm happy with that placement. For Honor is a... I'd say For Honor's a very good game. For Honor does a lot of stuff. For Honor's like almost my... go-to game for when people say like, oh, Ubisoft just does the same stuff over and over again. It's like, have you seen For Honor? Like, For Honor did this like massively, like not massively multiplayer, but this big multiplayer melee combat game with a brand new melee system that works really well. It looks really cool while you're playing it. The character design is awesome. I think they messed up a lot with the balancing and the game modes and stuff. I really wish they'd just do a For Honor 2 rather than carrying on supporting For Honor, because I think they could learn a lot from the mistakes they made. It sort of became bloated very fast, and then there'd be like one character that's way stronger than everyone else, and that kind of ruins the meta. But it's a super interesting game. Definitely if they do a sequel, I'll be playing that for sure. Inside, I don't love Inside as much as other people do. I think it was good. I think like obviously the ending was crazy. It's better than Limbo. Like it's more fun than Limbo. I can see Limbo. I'm going to put Limbo actually in. I'm going to say Limbo was decent. Inside was good. There's some cool puzzles. There's a cool atmosphere, but I don't think it's like an amazing game. I don't think it's that exciting. It's just like a good little indie puzzle game. I feel like some people get carried away when they talk about small games like that and how much it affects them. Oh, I'm going to disagree with Maida in a bit, I think. Right, Binding of Isaac, I would say it's decent. It's a roguelike. It's fine. It's super messed up, and I kind of like that in a way, like how messed up it is, because it's super weird. Action, yeah, I'm going to say it's decent. I don't love playing it. I don't think the gameplay is really good. I think it definitely it feels like an indie game. It feels a little bit sort of shoddy in some ways. I just don't love that side of it. Jedi Fallen Order, this is one I think I disagree with a lot of people. I would put Jedi Fallen Order as very good. I would say I had more fun playing Jedi Fallen Order than I have playing any of the Dark Souls games or Sekiro or anything like that. Like, I really like Jedi Fallen Order. It's a good Star Wars game. I think the story's really good, especially towards the end. That's one of the rare games that gets better and better as it gets towards the ending. Lightsaber combat was really, really cool. I thought some of the worlds that they took you to were really awesome. And I loved the fact that it was like kind of like Dark Souls combat, but with you being the super powerful one. And I found that a lot more fun. It's a lot easier, which is probably a good thing. Journey, I'm going to put is very good as well. Journey, I think is beautiful. Like, it's just a very beautiful game. I saw a thing this morning actually saying about like some Twitter thing was like, what games would you consider as art? And Journey was one of the examples, and I'd completely agree that like Journey is like almost more of a feeling that makes it good. It's like this amazing feeling of kind of discovery and exploration, and it not being what you expect from a game, and it does some things that other games haven't really ever done before or since, which I think are really interesting. Journey was very cool. Like, very, very cool. There's not a lot to it, but I think it's very, very cool. Left 4 Dead 2. I'm going to put Left 4 Dead 2 as a great game. Left 4 Dead 2 it got that whole kind of co-op shooter thing perfectly right. And it did some really interesting stuff with melee combat, which I don't think the first one had done so well. Some of the maps are really interesting. It supported mods, and there's some crazy mods for it that were really, really cool. The versus mode was a lot of fun. It was genuinely scary and genuinely difficult. Like the combat, the bot difficulty made a big difference. It's really interesting now that we can compare it to like Bad for Blood. Now we've played the beta of that, and it's like you can see that Left 4 Dead 2 is still better than it. Like Left 4 Dead 2 did so much right. I'd say like the shooting mechanics and stuff could be a bit better, but for its time it was really, really amazing, and I think even now it's still pretty great. Mordhau I've barely played. I'm going to say I haven't played that. I have played it, but not enough to have a thing. Same for Outlast. I more made Soft Snail play that. Getting Over It, I've barely played it. That's a stupid thing with the hammer songs there. Papers, Please, I'm going to say is great. Like, it's easy. I could see an argument that like, oh, how can you give Inside just good, but you're giving Papers, Please great. Papers, Please, I think does more, like, it's more than just a game, isn't it? Like, Papers, Please is kind of a bit of social commentary, a bit of kind of philosophy, a really kind of interesting thing to make you question your own ethical judgments, because everyone can look at a situation and say, well, I would have done the right thing. And Papers, Please is really good at making you like challenge that and being like, would you actually do the right thing? Like, if you had something at stake, would you do the right thing? And like, sometimes you do the wrong thing in Papers, Please, not even because you're like saving your family or something like that. Sometimes you do it because you're lazy or because you're bored, and it's like, that's a really interesting kind of way of making a game challenge you. I think it's really cool, really interesting. Resident Evil 7, I'm going to say is very good. Resident Evil 7, I think the second half of it is much weaker than the first half, but the first half is incredibly atmospheric, quite scary, super creepy. I recently played through it just before Village came out. We played through all the way through Resident Evil 7, and I enjoyed it a lot more than I did the first time I tried playing it. I still think that atmosphere of it is amazing. It's just a shame that, like, really once you get out of the house, it goes downhill pretty quickly, and it's unbelievably short. Which is a shame. Roblox I've never played, although I hear kids talking about it all the bloody time when I was a teacher. Rocket League, I'm going to say, is decent. I can understand how people who are really good at Rocket League love it. I am not really good at it. I enjoyed messing around with it when it was free on PlayStation Plus. I played a lot of it when it first came out, and it was fun and random. And then people started getting good at it, and then that kind of put me off it forever. Beat Saber is very, very good. I really, really like Beat Saber. I really enjoy Beat Saber. It's a lot of fun. It's probably one of my favourite VR games. There's something incredibly satisfying about hitting those blocks with the dance music and stuff. It's very, very cool. I do wish it was a bit more like Guitar Hero with like loads of licensed music and stuff. I know they've added stuff since, and you can get like on PC, you can get like mods or whatever to do it. But with the base game, and that's what I'm going to put on this, I think they did a really good job of making it sort of a different take on rhythm action, and I bloody love rhythm action. Right, Silent Hill 2, I've not played. I can see quite a lot of games here that I haven't played. Sims 4, I think is bad. I can't organise my own life. Why would I want to organise somebody else's? Infamous Second Son was good. I wouldn't say it was amazing. It looked really good. Like, it was a very nice looking game. But I'd say, like, in terms of, like, an open world game, it was pretty samey, pretty repetitive. So it was fun. It wasn't a bad game. None of these are really bad games, except for League of Legends and Pong. But, and Smite and Pokemon. But the, generally, I don't think Infamous was incredible. Civilization... This is Civilization 6. I'm going to say this was just good. I feel like Civilization has rested on its laurels ever since Civilization 2. Civilization 2 was the last Civilization game where I was like, oh, they're doing some really cool, interesting new things with it. You know, I've been playing since Civilization 1. Civilization 6 is just more of the same. It's still a good game, but they haven't done anything interesting for a long while. Which was a shame. Right. Spider-Man, how could you not put Spider-Man in amazing? He's the amazing Spider-Man. Spider-Man is a really amazing game. Like, I don't think it's quite a masterpiece, but the story was way better than I expected. Swinging around a city feels absolutely awesome. It does get a bit repetitive, like you're doing the same kind of things again and again and again and again. You know, it's a bit too long with that, but I have got a platinum in it, so I obviously enjoyed doing those things again and again and again and again. So yeah, Spider-Man, amazing. That's very easy. Spore. I'm going to say Spore was bad. Spore was obviously a victim of its own hype. They hyped up more than what they could possibly deliver on it. And when you actually play it, it's like, I think the first couple of worlds, you know, where you're sort of creating a creature are quite fun. And then once you get to the point where you're meant to be creating like civilization, it just breaks down. It's actually quite a bad game. But that first bit, like there's a lot of innovation of creating the creature that you're going to be, the species that you're going to be, but it breaks down pretty quickly into something that's quite bad. Wii Sports was very good. Like, Wii Sports was an amazing game for getting people who don't play games to play games with you, which is awesome. I think that's a really, really solid thing. Bully, I'm going to say it's decent. I don't have the same affection for Bully as I know lots of people do. I think, like, the idea of Bully was really good, like Grand Theft Auto, but in a school. Like, what's not to like? But I think, like, when I actually played it, I was a little bit like, all these environments are really sparse and not that interesting. There's not many memorable characters in it or anything like that. It was very much, the concept of it was much better than the execution. I'd love for there to be a Bully sequel. Like, I feel like Bully is very similar in some ways to Grand Theft Auto 3. Whereas, like, Grand Theft Auto 3 was a cool game and a cool idea, but, like, the execution wasn't great because of the technology and stuff. If they'd carried on with Bully in the same way they did with Grand Theft Auto, we would have, like, you know, the equivalent of Grand Theft Auto 5 and Bully. It would have been absolutely incredible. But I just don't think Bully was there when it came out. Deus Ex. Is this the first Deus Ex? I'm going to say Deus Ex was bad. I tried playing Deus Ex so much when it came out. I really wanted to play it. I was reading all of these journalists, like, going on in games magazines and PC magazines talking about how brilliant it was. And I just never saw it. Like, it seems like people were using their imagination a lot with that game. Like, the actual gameplay wasn't very good. Like, the shooting wasn't great. The hacking was quite boring. There was some cool stuff where, like, you could actually affect a story in really significant ways. More significant than most other games, even today. But I don't think the actual gameplay was very good in Deus Ex. It was like, again, a cool idea. The one afterwards was much better. Like the first one that was like slightly more modern. Was it this one? Yeah, it was this one, I think. This, I would say, was very good. Like, was that Human Revolution? Hopefully that's not the newest one, which was bad, again. But the one before that was very, very... I thought that was really cool, and it looked super nice, and the hacking was actually interesting, and there was lots of cool ways to get around stuff, and it was a cool story. I enjoyed the story. The only thing that was really bad about that was the boss battles, which was a shame. Factorio. Factorio is great. Factorio is... It scratches an itch in my brain that's like... this perfect thing for like organizing stuff, for setting something out and you get a huge amount of satisfaction from it, and then suddenly you realize that you need to make something more complicated and you have to ruin everything to start it up again. It's a little bit frustrating doing that, but once it's working, it's so satisfying, and knowing you're the one that worked it all out is just genius. Fallout 4 is really bad. Fallout 4 was a bad Fallout game. Like, the story was bad, the characters were bad, the gameplay was bad. Like, the world was okay. The world was... There was some interesting parts of the world. But, like, they really ruined it. I hated all the building stuff in it. I thought the whole settlement thing just didn't work at all gameplay-wise. They should have scrapped it. And I think the story was really boring. Like, I didn't care about any of the characters in it. It was just bad. The opening was quite cool. The opening was good, but then the rest of it was really bad. Fallout 3, I would say, is very good. Actually, I might even say great. Fallout 3 was great. It's not as good as New Vegas, but it's still great. Fallout 3 was a very, very good game. My wife absolutely loves it. My wife likes it more than New Vegas. But, yeah, there's some really cool characters in. There's some cool places. You know, Megaton's obviously really cool. Tenpenny Tower's really cool. The big, like, aircraft carrier or whatever it is very cool. Rivet City, is it? I think Rivet City. There's some cool stuff in it. There's a lot of stupid stuff in Fallout 3. Like some really stupid stuff. Like at the end, you have to go in somewhere that's like heavily irradiated, and literally someone in your party gets healed by radiation, and they're like, "No, this is your destiny. You should do it." And it's like, what the hell, man? Like, you could go in there and be fine. It's gonna kill me. There's some stupid stuff like that, and obviously it's buggy as hell, but it is a great game. It is a great RPG. Oh, it feels like we're getting towards the end of this. We're getting there. So, Fallout 76. Horrible. God, that was a terrible game. Far Cry 5. I think Far Cry 5 was decent. I don't think it was as good as Far Cry 3 or even Far Cry 4. No, actually, I'd say it's good. I'd go as far as to say it's a good game. Far Cry 5 is a good game. It's just very much a case of, you know, that Ubisoft problem of when they've got a series, they keep on remaking the same game a little bit. Far Cry 5 is way too similar to Far Cry 3 and 4, which is a real, real shame. Far Cry Blood Dragon, I thought was bad. I didn't think Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon was anywhere near as funny as it thought it was. I didn't think the references were that good. I didn't think the gameplay was particularly interesting. I thought it looked kind of horrible. And I know it was kind of on purpose that it looked horrible, but that didn't stop the fact that it did look horrible. I just didn't think Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon was good. I don't think I found it as funny as a lot of people did. Warcraft 3 was good. Frozen Throne, I don't know, is that just the expansion? Warcraft 3 had an incredible story. I didn't really like the gameplay stuff where they started introducing heroes. Like, I didn't like that as much. You know, I thought Warcraft 1 and 2 were much better. I was way more into StarCraft anyway. But yeah, Warcraft 3, the hero stuff just didn't sit that way with me. It was a good game. Story, absolutely awesome. Classic story. But, yeah, the gameplay, it just wasn't my favourite of those kind of RTS games. Counter-Strike, I'll just put it with the other Counter-Strikes. I didn't bloody know the difference between any of these. Where did I put the other Counter-Strike? I'm struggling to see it. Is it there? Is it there? No, not that high up. I must have put it in decent or bad. Oh, there I did. I put it in bad. Yeah, I'd say that. Counter-Strike, it's a game that, for me, it's quite bad. I don't want to play it. I don't particularly have a lot of fun playing it. I'm terrible at it. Gary's Mod, I'd also say it's bad. I've never played anything in Gary's Mod that I thought was incredible. I've never played anything in Gary's Mod that I thought was great. I played a bit of Prop Hunt in it and was like, yeah, this is okay, but then Call of Duty did it much better, I think. Gary's Mod is just okay. I'm sure, again, some people have done amazing stuff in Gary's Mod, but just not for me. Next one, Guitar Hero 3. This is incredible. I think I've got a copy of it behind me somewhere, actually. I'd say Guitar Hero 3 was amazing. Like, I loved the Guitar Hero game. Guitar Hero 3 was near the peak of Guitar Hero, like just properly amazing Guitar Hero games. I wish they'd come back. I would happily buy loads of plastic peripherals to play them. It would be very frustrating, like I can't play them on stream or anything like that because of stupid DMCA. If they released a Guitar Hero with loads of licensed music that they licensed so people could stream it, that's all this channel would be from now on. I'd just play tons of that. But yeah, it's an amazing game. Guitar Hero is so good. I spent way too long learning how to get good at plastic guitar, not to put that up there. I literally have no idea what Heyday is. Hitman, is this Blood Money? Blood Money was decent. No, I'd say it's good. Blood Money's a good game. A lot of the Hitman games have been good games, I think. Like, I don't think they've been like masterpieces. I don't think they've been that great. But they've been very, very good. And the style of them is very cool. I do need to hurry up a little bit. Hotline Miami, also a good game. I don't think the story is as clever as it thinks it is, but the actual gameplay is really good. The instant restart thing was so good, so addictive, made it a lot of fun to play. Just Cause 2. Just Cause 2 has to be up there and great. Just Cause 2 is an incredible game. Obviously, like, the story wasn't that great, and for doing missions and stuff, the controls were a bit crap and stuff like that. But just messing around in Just Cause 2 is some of the most fun I've ever had in a game. It's so bloody good. Just Cause 2 was awesome. Same as Just Cause 3, I thought that was awesome too. Kingdom Hearts, is this the new one? I don't even know which Kingdom Hearts is. I'm going to say I haven't played it. I haven't played all the way through any of them. Life is Strange, I thought was good. I didn't think it was as incredible as some people did, but it was nice that it's kind of a different perspective, a different type of story being told in the games. For that, it's good. I think gameplay-wise, there's a lot of kind of having long conversations that you can't easily skip out of that don't really go anywhere. There's like a bit of time wasting going on. And there's some like weird stealth sections and stuff I didn't like. Right, that's like the sequel, Life is Strange, or the little side bit that I didn't end up playing. Metro 2033, I would say is good. The, no, I'd say it's great. Very good, actually. Yeah, I'll say it's very good. I won't go as far as to say great. Metro 2033 looks gorgeous. Like, that's a big part of it. The story was really cool, especially the supernatural side of the ghosts and everything like that. A lot of the environment's really good. The gameplay wasn't the best. Like, again, like, lots of the fights are very, very, very similar in it. But it did have that kind of atmosphere that a lot of games don't have. Like, I think it's quite similar to Resident Evil 7 in that. They had a really cool atmosphere, but maybe the gameplay wasn't quite up to scratch to get any higher. Mount and Blade Warband, I've barely played, so I'm going to put that there. Same for Nier. Pathologic, haven't played that. Path of Exile, I'm going to say is bad. I get lots of people love Path of Exile and think it's better than Diablo 3. I don't see that personally. I think Path of Exile is very, very grindy. It takes all the grindy stuff out of Diablo and sort of distills it into this huge game that's just filled with grinding. And it's like this incredible talent tree, which is massive, and then like nearly like 99% of them are just like 1% extra damage and stuff like that, which is exactly what I don't like. I've talked about that in lots of videos. So yeah, not for me. Plants vs. Zombies, that was a fun game. That was decent. Not particularly exciting, but it's decent. Postal 2 is one of those games that as a teenager I probably would have thought was great, but I just think it's pretty horrible. Horrible is a good description of Postal 2. It's obviously made by the sort of person that's kind of you wouldn't want to run into on the internet these days. You know, you can imagine the person who made Postal 2 was probably a bit of a weirdo, to put it mildly, and a lot of the stuff in it is kind of being offensive for the sake of being offensive, which I think as a society, even in the gaming community, hopefully we're past that now. Prototype was good. Prototype was a good open world game, made you feel really, actually, I'd even say it's very good. Prototype 2 was very good. It made you feel super powerful. It did something which like a lot of open world games hadn't done at the time, of being like, okay, let's turn you into the scariest thing in this city and just let you go wild. And it's like you did get some absolutely insane powers by the end of it. It was really cool, and the movement abilities were really cool in it. I really liked that. Rainbow Six Siege is great, I would say. I feel like Rainbow Six Siege like hasn't progressed very much. Like, it's still basically the same game it always has been since it came out, which is a little bit of a shame, but it is like what's at its heart is very good. It's a really interesting take on first person shooter games. I loved it when it came out, and then like over time I kind of got bored of it, but it is very, very cool and very different to a lot of other things. Saints Row 2 is good. I was listening to a podcast the other day where they were talking about Saints Row 1 and 2 and saying about how it was back then it was very much a rip-off of Grand Theft Auto, and it showed, and it wasn't as good as Grand Theft Auto. And I think that's true. Like, it had some funny bits in it, and it was nice to have another game like Grand Theft Auto, but it was always going to be in the shadow of GTA. Sniper Elite, I don't think has ever been that good. I'm going to say they were bad. Like, obviously the actual sniping mechanics are fun, but it turns out you can't build a whole game about that. Like, the rest of the game wasn't that good, and the story wasn't that good. Stalker's a really difficult one because, like, in terms of atmosphere and what it was trying to do, super high up here. In terms of bugs and just being kind of frustrating to play, super low down here. So I'm guessing I'll leave it in decent. I'm hoping the new one's going to be really good. Stalker had amazing ideas, amazing atmosphere again, but it was just so buggy, so broken, so many features didn't work the way it should do, and it ended up being super punishing as kind of a result of bugs and stuff, which you never really want. Right, Battlefront 2. This is the old Battlefront 2, I think. That is very, very good. Battlefront 2, it's dated horribly, obviously. If you go into it now, it looks super ugly and stuff, but just the sheer amount of stuff it let you play with was really, really cool. And being able to do that sort of stuff in the Star Wars universe, it's the sort of thing that you can't imagine being made now, this kind of vaguely wonky, shoddy game that just throws everything from a movie universe at you. It feels like that sort of stuff just doesn't happen anymore, which to me is a shame, at least. Then there's the more modern Battlefront 2, which I would say, personally, I would put it alongside that Battlefront 2 because, okay, yeah, you don't get as much stuff in it and there's nowhere near as much freedom in it, but everything that's there is so much more polished. It looks absolutely incredible. Like, it's a beautiful game. It's loads of fun to tool about in, and there's just some really, really cool stuff in there that just looks so much more spectacular than I thought it would be. And, like, I do like my graphics in games, and Battlefront 2 looks absolutely gorgeous. Right, and Super Hot, I would say, is very, very good. It's a really good game, but what it does is just, like, kind of limited. You know, it's kind of short. Super cool idea. Super cool idea, but not, I would say, probably not the most sort of deep game in the world. And I didn't think the story was that great. It was another one of those indie games where I think it thinks it's cleverer than it actually is. System Shock 2, I'm going to say, was bad. System Shock 2 is another good example of a game where the story was really cool, the atmosphere was kind of interesting, but the gameplay was really bad, especially like inventory management and stuff like that. I just thought it was bad. Undertale, I think, is horrible. I think the people who like Undertale are posers, personally, which this will probably annoy a load of people on YouTube. They'll probably get me some hate. I don't understand how someone can think that Undertale is super clever or super interesting. The gameplay is not fun or interesting at all. It's like a bloody Newgrounds Flash game and not a particularly good one. The story kind of, I get that it does some interesting things with like resetting games and stuff like that and how it like remembers stuff, but it's not that interesting, is it? I think it's just kind of one of those, it's almost like a counterculture thing of like, it's so different from other games. It's so different from other games that are about at the time, especially, that it's kind of, you can like that as like an underground thing. It's almost like, you know, trying to be punk, but not in a cool or meaningful way, just in a being knowingly different. You know, you get like kids on the internet who post stuff and it's like, oh, I'm so random. It's that kind of sense of humor and stuff, I think, in it, which I really think is just kind of shallow and pointless, which is a shame. But yeah, I get there's like a strong fan community about it. More power to you if you like that stuff, but I don't think there's much to it personally. Right, Pokemon. Is this Pokemon Red and Blue? Pokemon Red and Blue, that's the first Pokemon. I would say that is very good. The first Pokemon was a really cool game. I can't remember which one I had. I think I had Blue. I really enjoyed it at the time. I thought it was a really interesting like thing, like trying to collect all the Pokemon, stuff like that. Obviously the first 150 Pokemon are the best 150 Pokemon, so that can be put in very good. Animal Crossing, is this the newest one, New Horizons maybe? Again, very, very good game. I'm so glad it came out at the beginning of the pandemic. Like, it gave me loads of stuff to do in that game. Had a blast. I really enjoyed the fact that loads of people were playing it. That was really, really cool. I got bored of it, but like I played it for like 6-7 months, which is pretty cool. And like there's people I know who've been playing it for like over a year now, which is insane. So yeah, I think it's a very good game. I think Animal Crossing is good. Any other Pokemon, I didn't play Diamond. Cuphead, I'm going to say, was good, mostly just for the art style. I think the gameplay was okay. It's not my sort of thing, but God, that game's beautiful. It is such a cool art style. I think it's a very cool looking game. Yeah, Cuphead is very cool. Death Stranding, I think, was bad. I knew Death Stranding was going to be bad as soon as I saw the reviews where people were like, it's boring, but it's boring on purpose. And I'm like, that's not a good thing. There's a part of me that wants to like Death Stranding and wants to get into it a bit more. Like, I probably played about 10 hours of it and stopped. Maybe less, maybe like 8. I just didn't find it fun. And I don't think it's meant to be fun, and that's like a problem. It seems like with Director's Cut, they're adding a lot more stuff to try and make it fun, but I still feel like the beginning of the game is going to be pretty miserable, which is a shame. And I've never thought that Kojima was like such the genius that people think he is. I just think his stuff is super weird. Diablo 3. Is this Diablo 3? No, this is Diablo 2. Diablo 2 I've barely played, so I'm going to say that's in stuff that I haven't played. I've played a tiny bit of it, but not much. So yeah, like when Resurrected comes out, I was thinking about playing it, but now there's all this stuff about Blizzard at the moment. Probably won't. What is this? We Play 2? Nope. Grounded, I don't think I've played enough to say anything about it. I've only played a couple of hours of it. Just Dance 2020, haven't played. Loads I haven't played now. So, NBA 2K20, haven't played. Persona 5, is that Royal? Is that Strikers? I don't know. Haven't played either of them. Sly Cooper, I haven't played. Spec Ops The Line. Amazing. Not quite a masterpiece. The gameplay isn't there for it to be a masterpiece. Spec Ops The Line is an amazing game. It's so good. I feel like everyone who's really into Call of Duty and Battlefield and stuff should be made to play Spec Ops The Line. It does such a good job, like I was talking about with Papers, Please, of challenging you as a gamer, challenging what you think of things. And it did it in a way where it's like a kind of surprise when you're playing it. I feel like they marketed it as much more of like a standard war shooter type thing, whereas it's really, really not. The gameplay wise it kind of is, but story wise it goes to some crazy places. I think Spec Ops The Line is a game that everyone should play. It's really, really interesting, and it doesn't reveal itself too soon, which is really cool. Like, you could play through, if you played through half Spec Ops The Line then got distracted and played something else, you'd just think it was like a really boring military game, but it's so interesting. So Valorant, to me, I'll put it the same as Counter-Strike. I'm sure lots of people love Valorant. I can't do it. I'm not good at those Twitch aiming things, so not for me. Crusader Kings 2 is a good game. I think, like, they're not very good at making the menus, like, user-friendly, but there's so much depth to those games. It's really interesting. I actually have Crusader Kings 3 and still haven't played it, so maybe I'll come back to it at some point. Divinity 2, I'm going to say, is decent. Like, those sort of RPGs aren't really for me, but it was doing some really interesting things with, like, interactions with the world and how that could affect the story and stuff, which was really cool. It gave a lot of agency to the player, which I thought was very, very cool. But yeah, I haven't played enough of it really to say much more about it than that. Dead or Alive 6, again, decent. It's a decent fighting game. There's some fun stuff in it. Actually, I'd say it's bad. It's not as interesting as other fighting games. I can't say it's as good as those other games that I've put in decent. Dead or Alive 6 is quite a boring fighting game. There's nothing terribly wrong with it, but it's just okay. Dragon Quest, haven't played. Dying Light, I'm going to say it was very good. Dying Light was better than it had any right to be. I don't think anyone expected it to be as good as it was. Obviously, I'm super excited for the sequel. But yeah, really, really interesting game. Really interesting, like, first-person parkour, melee combat. Loads of stuff that you'd think wouldn't work in first-person, but really did. And quite an interesting story and everything as well. So yeah, Dying Light was good. Good game. Fall Guys, I'll say, was decent. It was like a bit of a flash in the pan, wasn't it? Like, I enjoyed Fall Guys when it came out, and then over time it kind of got boring quite fast. And actually, maybe I'll put it in good. It is good, but it's very kind of, it's, you know, a one-trick pony kind of thing, isn't it? It's like, it's funny watching them bobble about, and it's funny competing against lots of people at once, but gameplay-wise, there's not a huge amount to it, and there's some really annoying stuff that can get you knocked off and stuff, which is really irritating. This is Half-Life Alyx, haven't played it, sadly. Last of Us Part 2, easily a masterpiece. My favourite game of last generation, I think. Last of Us Part 2 is incredible. Like, that's one of the few games where I've talked about the subjectivity of lots of these. I've said this many times on Twitter and always caught a bit of flack for it. If you didn't like The Last of Us Part 2, I think either there's something wrong with you or you're lying to yourself for some reason. I genuinely think Last of Us Part 2 is one of the best games ever made. And it's like, I think the narrative is unbelievably powerful and interesting and does stuff you don't expect. The characterization is better than any other video game. The gameplay is really solid. It's a beautiful game. Like, graphically, it looks incredible. The locations are really interesting. It's just such a polished, amazing experience. And it's like, when you hear people, I always bring it up when I'm talking about Call of Duty stories, that when people talk about Call of Duty stories and they're like, oh yeah, well, I love the Black Ops story, or I love the Zombies story, you know, I love the Aether story, or something like that. It's like, have you actually played a game with a good story? Because like all those stories are kind of just forgettable. They're just, you know, set dressing for the shooting. Like Last of Us Part 2 has an incredible story that I absolutely adored. It was just so much more powerful than I expected it to be. I bloody love it. Like, really love it. I'm actually looking at this. I'm going to move World of Warcraft down to amazing. I feel like World of Warcraft doesn't deserve to be up there with those. And maybe Minecraft. I'm tempted to move Half-Life down as well. Half-Life 2. But no, Half-Life 2 does deserve to be there. Yeah, those two games, while they're amazing, they're not those kind of masterpieces. There's stuff that I didn't like about these. These games, there's basically nothing I didn't like about them. Yeah, I had to do some last-minute movements. Right, we're getting near the end. The last 3 rows, we're getting there. Metal Gear Solid. Ah, people are going to be angry at me. I think Metal Gear Solid is bad. I think almost entirely for the controls. I think if they remade Metal Gear Solid with modern controls, I would probably love it. But I've tried going back to Metal Gear Solid so many times. I didn't play it when it came out. I've tried going back to it loads of times, and going back to that game with its stupid controls just angers me so much. I find it so frustrating to play. I really, really don't like it. Like, I've tried so much. They need to remake it so I can like it. Like, they really do need to go back to that. Oblivion. I'm going to say Oblivion was great. I feel like I'm annoying some people. Yeah, Maida's getting annoyed. But Oblivion, I would say, is great. Oblivion, I think it wasn't as good as Skyrim, but they did some really cool stuff. The world was fun to explore. It's the first sort of big RPG that felt kind of immersive. You know, Morrowind was good, but was broken in so many ways. It kept reminding you it was a game. Oblivion had some really cool stuff, especially the way that like characters actually had like a schedule and you could mess with that a little bit and it would affect other things in the world. It was really, really clever. The main story was pretty bad, but if you ignored the main story, everything else in Oblivion was really good. Which, you know, probably applies to lots of Bethesda RPGs. Right, Payday 2, I'm going to say was good. Maybe very good, actually. Payday 2 was very good. Playing Payday 2 with friends was some of the most fun I've had with a co-op game, and it did really interesting stuff, really interesting take on things, you know, just sort of like you having to try and do these heists and try to do them with stealth, and then when everything goes wrong, you find ways to get out, and you have like complementary abilities and stuff. It's very, very cool. I feel like they like almost expanded it too much, like it got too complex for its own good and a bit grindy and stuff. But I'd love to see a sequel for Payday. Payday is a very, very cool game. I don't know what this is. Is that Persona 3? Never played it. Persona 4, never played it. Rust, I would say, is decent. Rust is like a lot of those open world survival games like Ark and stuff. It's a lot of fun, and I've put a lot of time into it, but I'd probably say it's the weakest one out of them for me. Like, I much preferred Ark and Conan. Rust is definitely a decent game. It's just got a lot of rough edges, which is a shame. Saints Row, is that Saints Row? Oh, that's Saints Row 3. Saints Row 3 was very good, very funny. I think it probably has dated quite badly now, but that was like when Saints Row really sort of found its own voice a little bit. Like, it wasn't a Grand Theft Auto clone anymore. Instead, it was this like really over-the-top, almost comic book-esque crime type thing. I think it was a lot better than the second one, and it was a lot better than the fourth one, you know, when stuff got too crazy. It was good. Titanfall 2, easy masterpiece. Titanfall 2 is probably the best first-person shooter game that's ever been made. Incredible campaign, incredible multiplayer. Just, it's insane that people didn't copy it. It's insane that we haven't had a Titanfall 3. I know all of the arguments of like, oh, well, like Titanfall 2 came out at a bad time. It came out between Call of Duty and Battlefield and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, but it's so much better than all of them. Like, Titanfall 2 is just such an insanely good game. I really wish we had a Titanfall 3. I hope that they'll do it one day. Dawn of War is, I'd say decent. It's okay. It's a fine Warhammer game. It's like, as a real-time strategy, it does a lot of stuff that I don't like. Like, I like sort of base building and stuff like that. I'm not a big fan of just sort of squad control and hero control, like I said about in Warcraft 3. I think Dawn of War is good at sort of portraying what kind of Warhammer's like. It's almost like a good version of, almost like trying to get the spirit of the board game into, or whatever you call it, tabletop game, into a video game. It does quite a good job, but it's just not really for me. I like some of the units and stuff. Right, Warzone, I'm going to have to put in amazing. Warzone is an amazing game. I don't think it's a masterpiece. I think there's a lot wrong with it. I've actually got a video coming out today which is talking about what's wrong with Warzone. But it is a very, very good game. It's an amazing game, and it's like we've had so much fun with it. Obviously, I've built a lot of my channel around it, so it's done amazing things for me. I still like playing it so much, like over a year since it came out, which is pretty rare with a lot of these games. So yeah, Warzone is amazing. Whatever else you have to say about it. Right, don't know what that is. Shovel Knight I've never played really. Samurai Warriors never played. Dragon Ball Z never played. Dead by Daylight I'd say is decent. Like, I find it very, very samey, like more so than most other games. I don't really get how there are these people that have played it for thousands of hours, because it feels like every match is basically the same. But I haven't played it that much, so maybe there's like a depth to it that I haven't really experienced yet. It's a super fun game to watch though. I like watching other people play it. It's cool. DuckTales, I mean, I've barely played it. Untitled Goose Game I thought was kind of bad. It's like, it's a joke, it's funny, but it's not a great game. I didn't think the puzzles were particularly well done. Yeah, I don't think Untitled Goose Game was that good. It was very, very funny, but that was about it. Hollow Knight I've barely played. I don't think I'll say that. Is this Arkham Knight? Or is this Arkham Asylum? It looks like that's the Batmobile, so I'm going to guess this is Arkham Knight. I'm going to say Arkham Knight was very good. I think... Actually, no, I can't put it above Arkham City. No, I'll put it in just good. Like, as with everyone, a lot of the boss battles being in a Batmobile was really stupid. But the sort of core Batman stuff was really cool in it still. And I thought the story was actually pretty good in it. Like, I enjoyed the story a lot in Arkham Knight. Way more than I expected. Just seeing if anyone was correcting me on which one that is. Then Microsoft Flight Sim... Is that Microsoft Flight Simulator X? Well, Microsoft Flight... I've barely played Microsoft Flight Simulator X. Haven't played No More Heroes 2. Haven't played Total War Shogun 2. Subnautica, I would say, is decent. It's never grabbed me in the way other games have. I think I played it a lot when it was very early on in development, so I think they've added a lot more to it since, that like maybe it's a lot better. I should go back to it because it seems like the sort of game that I'd probably quite like. It seems like it'd be a good game to stream, but for now I'll say it's decent. A lot of these games are games where like I just haven't played them that much to have a really good thing. Super Seducer sounds super creepy. Not played that. Total War Warhammer 2 haven't played. Yakuza 5 haven't played. No More Heroes 2 haven't played. Ghost of Tsushima's one that I hear people say a lot. I would say Ghost of Tsushima is very good. I think it's a very good game. I don't necessarily think it's great. I think it did a really cool job of like that sort of samurai fantasy, power fantasy. Yes, it's repetitive. Yes, it's way too long. But it's very... Actually, no, I would say it's great. I'm going to move that. I'm going to say that is great. It's beautiful, that game. Like, really beautiful. The music and the visuals are incredible. And the fights are really, really engaging. Like, I think the fighting system's awesome in it. When you have those, like, one-on-one fights against really powerful other samurai, I think it's a really, really great game. Very cool. Yeah, I definitely enjoyed Ghost of Tsushima more than I enjoyed Bloodborne. For sure. Right, Ori and the Will of the Wisps is fine. It's okay. I think the second one is much, much better. The first one is okay. It's like, it's a good platformer game, but it's not the best game ever. I think the sequel's much better. Bayonetta is good. I didn't absolutely love it. I kind of wish it was less pervy than it is. It's a very thirsty game, which is a bit of a shame. But the combat's good. I think I probably actually enjoyed it more than Devil May Cry. I can't remember where I put Devil May Cry. Oh, in the same one. Yeah, that's fine. I think I enjoy Bayonetta a little bit more. I enjoyed the combat system. And I love all of like the crazy religious iconography being used as bad guys. I think that's really interesting. That's very cool. We're getting near the end. Black Ops Cold War. So we're detaching this from Warzone. So this is just with zombies and stuff like that. I'm going to say it's good, I think. I think I'm going to put it the same as Modern Warfare, because whereas I liked Modern Warfare's campaign a lot, I prefer Cold War. Obviously, I like zombies, and, well, I kind of like zombies, and I preferred the multiplayer in Black Ops Cold War, I think, to Modern Warfare, but they're kind of much for muchness, and I'm worried that Vanguard might be similar, and I did a video about that the other day. But yeah, I'm worried that it's kind of might be in a similar spot to it, where they're keeping too much the same. Which would be interesting to see whether that's true. They're both good games. They're both solid games, but I don't think they're like up there with these kind of things. Call of Duty as an ongoing thing is awesome, but I think it's really Warzone is the thing that ties it all together for me. That's the thing that I love. Right, Crusader Kings 3, like I said, I've bought it, but I still haven't played it. Cyberpunk 2077, I would say it's really bad. It's not quite down in horrible status. I think Cyberpunk, I was really annoyed when it came out that people were so focused on the bugs and the poor performance. I don't think that was the main problem with Cyberpunk. I don't think Cyberpunk is a good game aside from bugs. I almost think the developers probably push that narrative of like, oh, it's just buggy, but there's an amazing game that you just can't get to because of the bugs. There isn't an amazing game under there. Like, it's not a particularly good RPG. It's got some beautiful cities. Like, that's the main thing I say for it. Some of the visuals are amazing for the places, but like the cities feel dead. The NPCs don't interact with you hardly at all. They don't do anything interesting. There's hardly any of the systems that make other open world games interesting. Like, you don't get chased by the police and stuff like that. There's no like car chases or anything going on like that. The combat wasn't very good. You kind of find one thing that works and just stick to it. The hacking, which obviously should be a massive part of Cyberpunk, was really boring. It was like, oh, I'm going to make a distraction, or I'm going to make that person blind for a second, and that was basically it. There was none of the kind of environment interaction like you get in Watch Dogs or something like that. It was just a very disappointing game, and the story really wasn't interesting, I didn't think. Like, once you get more into the Johnny Silverhand stuff, it really gets worse and worse. I didn't think Cyberpunk was a good game at all. And like I said, I don't think it's because of the bugs. I just don't think it was a good game. Like, for me, on my PC, it ran alright, to be honest. Doom Eternal was good. I didn't like it anywhere near as much as Doom 2016. Like, I thought they made some weird choices with Doom Eternal that made it a lot... I'm going to put in just good. Like, some of the later enemies are really frustrating to play against, and it just sort of slows the combat down. There's some weird stuff going on with the grappling hook and some weird, like, jumping bits that I didn't like very much. I don't think Doom Eternal, for me, was anywhere near as good as Doom 2016. It was a bit of a disappointment. I think, like, that game probably deserves to be up there, but it's just a disappointment has knocked it down a little bit for me. Oh, this is Final Fantasy VII Remake. I don't know, I've forgotten where I put Final Fantasy. Oh, I put it up there in great. Right. I'm going to put Final Fantasy VII down and have barely played it. So I have tried it, but not very much. Final Fantasy VII Remake, all the stuff I said earlier about Final Fantasy VII. That's where it goes. Hades. Hades is good. I don't love Hades in the same way a lot of other people do. I keep getting to like about the same point in it, and then I start getting bored. I start getting a bit tired of it. I think like my problem with it is the different abilities you get don't change the gameplay up as much as they do in other roguelikes. Like in other roguelikes, like Rogue Legacy, the differences between each run are like pretty spectacular. Like you end up playing in completely different styles and it feels really different. Hades to me always feels kind of the same with a few extra little buffs, which is a bit of a shame. Like, again, maybe I'm not good at it enough to appreciate the depth of it, but for me it's just kind of, it gets a little bit repetitive. Then Hearthstone, again, is a good game. I think there's a lot of kind of, I knew all of the cards, if I kept up from it from launch, I'd probably appreciate it a lot more than I do. Actually, no, I'd say it's very good. I think I prefer it to Hades and stuff like that. But yeah, like Hearthstone, I just fell behind and I never felt like I could get back into it, which is a shame. I really enjoyed some of the single player stuff they did, actually. I thought that was really interesting and something a bit unique for that kind of genre. Hitman, this is Hitman 2, I think. This is the newest Hitman. I would say this is a very good game as well. Hitman has done some crazy things with like the massive open worlds and having like constantly adding new targets and new modifiers and stuff and new ways of doing things. People find crazy ways to speedrun it. Hitman's a spectacular game and there's nothing else like it. Like Hitman is very much its own kind of thing. It's very, very cool. And the modern Hitmans I think are much better than the older ones. Superliminal, I would say, is okay. I didn't think it was amazing. We played that on, I think, did I play that on stream or did I just play that off stream? I can't remember. But I didn't think it was spectacular. It was just kind of trippy and interesting, but just okay. The Avengers, I'm going to have to say it's bad. It's a real shame because I think the combat's really good in the Avengers. I think it looks pretty good. Like, visually, it looks fine for an Avengers game. The big problem is the grinding and the end game and the sort of like repetition of it. The fact that you're nearly always fighting robots all the time and like they're all the same. It'd be much more interesting if like it was a lot more focused on like boss fights and stuff, you know, fighting villains. That would be much more interesting. Instead, you're just wading through loads and loads of robots that are all the same. And the sort of ridiculous way they did the end game, where it's super confusing which missions you have to keep repeating, ends up being quite a lot like Warframe in some ways. It's a real shame, because I think it could have been cool. The combat system is very good. Like, playing as Thor and Captain America especially feels so good. And Iron Man, actually. It's the best version of Iron Man I've seen in a game. But it's a real shame that was bad, because I don't think they'll do a sequel, because it was like so hard for them to make that one. Then it had like obviously quite a bad reaction. It's not great. And then Wasteland Like a Dragon, I've only played the very beginning of both of those, so I don't want to rate them. So that is my rating. Hopefully you all just agree with everything I've said there. I can't imagine you disagree. If you do, you can make your case in the comments if there's a game that you think I was unfair to, a game that I put too low down, or a game that you think I put too high up. I'd be interested to see what you say. Not going to say I'm going to agree with you, but I'll read them at least. You know, and I'll probably like the comments of people that maybe I do agree with. If there's any games in this bit, the bits I said I have not tried, that you think I definitely should, let me know. And let me know why I should try it. Why is it so good? Because a lot of these games I feel like I know what they are, I just have a reason for why I haven't played them. So let me know in the comments. If you like this video, because this is a crazy long video, I don't often upload 2-hour videos. If you liked it, please do like and subscribe. If you want to see more stuff like this, if you want to see me do another tier list, let me know in the comments what tier list you'd like to see. It's a bit of an experiment doing a video this long, but we'll see how it goes. So thank you very much for watching. If you've made it to the end of this, you're an absolute legend. Like, imagine making it to the end of a video this long. Well done, you. So thank you very much, and goodbye.